when my officer husband Shin Xiaoxing slapped me to the ground, 3 months pregnant, for his savior Song Kuo. After 8 years of devotedly fawning over Shin Xiaoxing, I suddenly woke up. I calmly went to the hospital to terminate the pregnancy, severing the last thread tying me to Shin Xiaoxing. A year later, Shin Xiaoxing finally remembered me, his so-called pregnant wife. He came knocking on my door carrying bags of gifts, wanting to see me and his child. I laughed. You divorced me to marry another woman. Why should I keep your child to disgust myself? I'd been reborn. I was reborn on the very day when my military officer husband Shin Xiaoxing gave all the money I'd saved for childbirth to his lifesaver Song Kuo to buy appliances. Watching the neighbor Song Kuo's family move in a big color TV, refrigerator, and washing machine, I suddenly realized the money I had saved for childbirth had vanished. It felt like a bolt from the blue. I went to confront Shin Xiaoxing for an explanation, only to see Song Kuo coyly nestled in his arms. Seeing my husband being so intimate with another woman made me tremble with anger. I stepped forward and demanded to know where my money had gone. Song Kuo, still nestled in Shin Xiaoxing's arms, answered coyly, Xiaoxing gave all the money to me to buy appliances. Staring at Song Kuo's smug face, I was furious to the extreme. How can you be so shameless, without earning money yourself? You only think about spending others' money. Song Kuo cried pitifully, her makeup smudged, while Shin Xiaoxing's eyes turned red with anger, forcing me to apologize. I refused to apologize. Ever since Shin Xiaoxing transferred Song Kuo to the military district as his confidential secretary, everything had turned upside down. Shin Xiaoxing frequently went out of his way to help Song Kuo, often buying rice and flour for her, whenever Song Kuo had a headache or fever. Shin Xiaoxing would come at her beck and call. Even in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm, Song Kuo could knock on his door wrapped in a blanket and summon Shin Xiaoxing to accompany her. As for me, his wife of 3 years, Shin Xiaoxing treated me like thin air. Anger and resentment filled my heart, especially when I saw Song Kuo shamelessly throwing herself into Shin Xiaoxing's arms right in front of me, his wife. As a deliberate provocation, my fury only grew stronger. You shameless adulterers, filled with nothing but lust and illicit affairs, I'll report you to the military district leadership. As my words fell, Shin Xiaoxing violently slapped me across the face. The slap sent me tumbling to the ground, my head hitting Song Kuo's cabinet with a heavy thud. Blood gushed out as I lay on the floor, my mind flooded with an unbelievable experience. Turns out Shin Xiaoxing didn't just give all my childbirth savings to Song Kuo to buy appliances. He even gave the apartment allocated by my work unit to Song Kuo. I cried and made scenes, but it was all in vain. Song Kuo is vicious and despicable, constantly scheming against me at every turn. Meanwhile, Shin Xiaoxing blindly trusted Song Kuo. After being manipulated by her once again, he used the excuse of his elderly and frail parents needing care to send me back to his hometown thousands of miles away to look after them, in the countryside. I toiled tirelessly, bearing children and caring for his parents, waiting desperately like longing for stars and the moon to reunite with him. Shin Xiaoxing's official position kept rising, yet he never once considered bringing me back. It wasn't until his parents passed away one after another that I went to find Shin Xiaoxing, only to realize I had long since become a stranger to him, from the moment he sent me back to the countryside. We had already divorced and become passers-by in each other's lives. After sending me away, he couldn't wait to marry Song Kuo, holding a grand wedding ceremony for her. He and Song Kuo stayed together day and night, loving each other forever. Since Song Kuo couldn't bear children, the child I gave birth to and raised with hardship became theirs. When I, looking aged and haggard, came knocking, Shin Xiaoxing avoided me, while Song Kuo brought my biological son to see me. The bejeweled Song Kuo threw a stack of money at me as if I were trash. Moon Yin Yin, all these years Xiaoxing just treated you as a free nanny. I am his rightful and lawful wife, so get the hell out of here. My own flesh and blood son even said, Mom, look at what you've become now. You're no longer worthy of Dad. Take the money and leave. I'll send you money every month for your retirement, but on one condition. Never show your face in front of our family again. My whole life turned out to be a joke, exploited by others. The man I deeply loved treated me as a free maid, and even my own son despised me. Overwhelmed by rage, I spat blood and died on the spot. Memories of my past life and the present flashed through my mind as I lay on the ground, staring fixedly at Shin Xiaoxing and Song Kuo. Perhaps the hatred and fury in my eyes were too intense. Shin Xiaoxing, who had been busy comforting the sobbing Song Kuo, finally spared a glance at me, bleeding and lying on the ground. Seeing me with half my face swollen and bleeding from the forehead, Shin Xiaoxing froze. He finally remembered I was a pregnant woman, and Shin Shaoxing let go of the sobbing Song Kuer to help me up. Hatred filled my heart as I mustered all my strength to shake off his supporting hand. Get away from me. Shin Shaoxing didn't leave. Instead, he helped me up from the ground. You're bleeding. Let me take you to the hospital to get it treated. Didn't you hear me telling you to get lost? If you hadn't been talking nonsense, I wouldn't have hit you. I was just too angry earlier. But you were in the wrong here. Let's go to the hospital first to treat your wound, and we'll talk about apologies later. Ignoring my struggles, he forcibly carried me in his arms, preparing to take me to the hospital. Too, at that moment, Song Kuer suddenly collapsed softly onto the ground. Seeing Song Kuer faint, Shin Shaoxing immediately released me and rushed to her side. Kuer, what's wrong? Wake up. Don't you know Kuer has a heart condition and can't handle stress? This is all your fault. He shouted at me hysterically before calling for the guards. Shaoli, drive to the hospital immediately. Shin Shaoxing, his face full of anxiety, rushed out carrying Song Kuer, while his guard Shaoli immediately drove over upon hearing the commotion. Shin Shaoxing got into the car with Song Kuer and ordered the guard to drive, completely forgetting about me with blood streaming down my forehead. The car roared away as I wiped another trickle of blood from my forehead and staggered back to the house next door. Bandaging my bleeding forehead in front of the mirror, I quietly began to recall my past life. In my past life, after Shin Shaoxing hit me, he similarly ignored my bleeding and only cared about Song Kuer, who was pretending to faint. Furious and resentful, I rushed to the hospital and caused a scene. The consequence was Song Kuer having a heart attack and being hospitalized for half a month. As for me, I was placed under house arrest by Shin Shaoxing. Because I was pregnant, Shin Shaoxing didn't confine me, but he arranged for guards to watch me 24/7. The guard named Shaoli was from the same hometown as Song Kuer and was in cahoots with her. He pretended compliance while acting contrary, deceiving superiors and subordinates alike, treating me with great cruelty, giving me only one meal a day consisting of 2 rock-hard steamed buns and cold water. By the time Song Kuer was discharged from the hospital, I was emaciated from starvation, reduced to skin and bones. Shaoli said I was on a hunger strike, refusing to eat or drink. And Shin Shaoxing took it at face value. When he saw me, there wasn't a shred of comfort, only scolding, saying I showed no remorse and should hurry up and die if I wanted to. He even warned me, saying a shrew like me who causes trouble isn't worthy to be his wife, and if I kept making a scene, he'd divorce me. I loved Shin Shaoxing desperately, and hearing him threaten divorce stunned me on the spot. To prevent Shin Shaoxing from divorcing me, I no longer dared to make a scene. But my forbearance changed nothing. Song Kuer kept provoking me, flaunting how much Shin Shaoxing cared for and adored her. Infuriated by Song Kuer's words, I inevitably ended up quarreling with her again. Song Kuer set me up once more. She rolled down the stairs herself and falsely accused me of pushing her. Song Kuer was hospitalized again, this time claiming I pushed her and damaged her uterus, leaving her permanently infertile. I explained to Shin Shaoxing that I didn't push Song Kuer, that she framed me by staging it herself, but Shin Shaoxing didn't believe me. He told me I was facing jail time for intentional injury. I was terrified, but later Shin Shaoxing approached me again saying he'd pulled some strings to keep me out of jail. Shin Shaoxing asked me to return to the countryside to take care of his parents, saying he would bring me back after I gave birth and things settled down. With no other choice, I agreed to Shin Shaoxing's suggestion. On the day of my departure, he made me sign an apology agreement. Trusting Shin Shaoxing, I signed the so-called apology agreement and was then sent by him to the countryside. This departure lasted over 30 years. Initially, I planned to return to Shin Shaoxing's side after giving birth, but his mother suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and became bedridden, requiring care. To fulfill filial duties for Shin Shaoxing, I had no choice but to stay in the countryside. Over these 30 years, Shin Shaoxing only returned a few times to visit his parents. He even took our son to live with him, claiming it was to lighten my burden. I didn't know the truth until I was on my deathbed. The so-called apology agreement I signed back then was actually a divorce agreement. Shin Shaoxing married Song Kuer less than 3 months after sending me to the countryside. He even threw Song Kuer a grand wedding ceremony, and from then on, they treated me as a free old servant, wasting over 30 years of my life. The thought of this makes my teeth itch with hatred. If given another chance, whoever wants to be this old servant can have the job. Damn it, I'm not doing it anymore. I'll abort the vile bastard in my womb. If Shin Shaoxing wants a divorce, I'll grant it to him. 3. In this life, I'll leave this pair of scoundrels behind and live my own life. Since I'm leaving, I need to prepare for a rainy day. I should secure some benefits for myself first. The money I saved for childbirth has already been given by Shin Xiaoxing to Song Kuer to buy household appliances. There's hardly any money left at home now, but next month is Shin Xiaoxing's birthday, and I prepared a watch as his birthday gift. I can sell the watch first. Also, I haven't received this month's salary yet, and I won't be handing it over. Back when Shin Xiaoxing and I got married, I joyfully prepared a pair of gold rings. Shin Xiaoxing found them childish and never wore his, which now conveniently allows me to sell the rings. Doing the math, I can get back around 1,000 yuan, enough to cover the abortion and recovery expenses. The top priority now is the apartment allocated by my workplace. In my previous life, Shin Xiaoxing gave it directly to Song Kuer, but this time, such good fortune won't happen again. I need to sell the apartment first to get a sum of money. Clutching my watch and gold ring, I rushed to the office without caring about my disheveled appearance or the injury on my head. Seeing me in this state, my boss asked with great surprise. Without elaborating, I simply told my boss, I'm short on money now and plan to transfer the housing allocated to me. Please help me find a buyer. The price is negotiable. I'm known as a good-natured person at work, maintaining excellent relationships with both my boss and colleagues. The leader agreed to help me inquire. So I took the watch and gold ring to sell again. The watch was brand new and unused. I happened to meet a newlywed couple and sold it for 50 yuan less than my purchase price. I pawned the ring, which weighed 18 grams in total, for less than 1,000 yuan. With the money from the watch and ring, I went to the hospital and directly approached an obstetrician-gynecologist to explain my purpose. Shin Xiaoxing and I have been married for 5 years. But we haven't been able to conceive a child. Because of this worry, I frequently visit the doctor. The doctor knows me very well. Seeing that I wanted to abort the baby, they earnestly tried to persuade me. My mind was made up, but in the end, the doctor still refused to perform the surgery for me. She told me to get Shin Xiaoxing's signature for the procedure, since he's now in a leadership position. If I rashly aborted Shin Xiaoxing's child without his signature, she could face disciplinary consequences. I'm in a terrible mood because the child wasn't aborted. On the way back, I was thinking about how to make Shin Xiaoxing sign the papers. In my past life, Song Kuer falsely accused me of pushing her and damaging her uterus, making her infertile. Because of this, Shin Xiaoxing divorced me and married Song Kuer. This time, I won't wait for Song Kuer to scheme against me first. I'll strike preemptively to make this accusation stick and force Shin Xiaoxing to divorce me. Once the divorce is finalized, that heartless bastard will naturally and rightfully turn into nothing more than a pool of blood. Shin Xiaoxing didn't return until 9 p.m., by which time I had already eaten, washed up, and gone to bed. Half asleep, I felt something brushing against my face, stirring an inexplicable disgust and hatred. I instinctively swung my hand and slapped it away. A sharp slap echoed, my palm burning, and I jolted fully awake. A clear handprint emerged on Shin Xiaoxing's face. Needless to say, it was from me. At this moment, Shin Xiaoxing glared at me with a livid expression. Moon Yanyan, have you lost your mind? Having known Shin Xiaoxing for 10 years, I had always been gentle, considerate, and eager to please him. It was understandable how Shin Xiaoxing must have felt after suddenly being slapped. I rubbed my numb hand. I just had a nightmare about being chased and couldn't tell if it was a dream or reality, so I acted out. Shin Xiaoxing naturally wouldn't believe my explanation, and I didn't intend to make him believe me either. He fumed angrily. I just wanted to see how injured you were, yet you pretended to be crazy and hit me. Moon Yanyan, you're really something. Looking at the finger marks on his face, I felt some regret. I truly wasn't pretending to be crazy. If I'd known it was him touching my face, I should have slapped him a few more times. Seeing my silence, Shin Xiaoxing's face grew even more furious. You actually went to sleep without waiting for me. You didn't even make dinner. I thought you weren't coming back. As for dinner, didn't you eat with Song Kuer? Don't you two often have dinner together? A look of embarrassment flashed across Shin Xiaoxing's face. I shouldn't have hit you today. I was so angry in the heat of the moment. To be honest, you went too far today too. You clearly know I was just helping Song Kuer out of gratitude, and you know she has a heart condition. How could you say those things about her? So he was still intent on blaming me. I stared coldly at Shin Xiaoxing's handsome face. Before awakening, before knowing the heinous things he would do to me, I couldn't get enough of his handsome face. Now knowing what would happen next, I find his face utterly repulsive no matter how I look at it. Shin Xiaoxing softened his tone when he saw my silence. Kuer was wronged because of you. Go apologize to her tomorrow, and let this matter be over. What if I refuse to apologize? If you did something wrong, you should admit it. Don't you know that? I want to know what I did wrong. You took the money I saved without asking. Don't I have the right to get it back? Well, How about we say I borrowed the money from you? Borrowing means repaying, you should return everything you borrowed from me before too. Being repeatedly contradicted by me, Shin Xiaoxing's expression reached the pinnacle of awkwardness. His salary was already gone between supporting his parents and Song Kuer, otherwise he wouldn't have needed to touch my money. Shin Xiaoxing took the initiative to grab my hand, trying to coax me with tender affection. I shook him off abruptly. Shin Xiaoxing, let's make this clear. Helping Song Kuer is your business, I won't interfere anymore, but you must return every cent of my money untouched. Previously I never spoke up when he used my money, which made Shin Xiaoxing take it for granted. Seeing me so serious, he rubbed his nose and said, Nian Nian, we are one as husband and wife. There's no such thing as one as husband and wife. From now on, if you want to repay her kindness, I won't stop you. I promise I won't go looking for Song Kuer to cause trouble anymore, nor will I make any comments about your relationship. Just one thing, give my money back to me. Shin Xiaoxing stared at me intently. What do you mean? Exactly what I said. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. If you want to take care of Song Kuer, do it yourself, don't drag me into it. I have no responsibility or obligation to help you take care of her. Before, whenever I got angry and made a scene, as long as Shin Xiaoxing said a few sweet words to coax me, I would immediately make up with him and everything would be as good as new. This sudden change, so different from before, made Shin Xiaoxing's face darken. Mu Nian, do you know what you're saying? You're a military wife. Helping those in need is what you should be doing. Then why haven't I seen you caring about other people in need? There are plenty around here who are worse off than Song Kuer and need help more. Why aren't you helping them? After being rebutted like this by me, Shin Xiaoxing lost all face. With a dark expression, he let out a cold laugh. What are you making a fuss about again? I've told you countless times there's nothing between me and Song Kuer. She saved me back then. I was just repaying her kindness. I'd heard this so many times my ears were calloused. I cut him off directly. Enough. I'm not interested in your affairs with Song Kuer anymore, nor will I ever care again. I just have one demand, return my money to me. How can returned money that was already given? Stop being unreasonable. Let me tell you, I know exactly what's bothering you. You're just jealous, aren't you? How many times do I have to explain before you'll listen? Shin Xiaoxing had grown extremely impatient, his tone becoming much more severe. Mu Nian, you'd better rein in your petty schemes. I will continue helping Song Kuer. If you keep disobeying and stirring up trouble at home, don't blame me for being ruthless. I'll divorce you. In my past life, Shin Xiaoxing threatened me with divorce. I was terrified, afraid he'd abandon me, afraid I'd never earn his love. In this life, knowing his love was never meant for me but only for Song Kuer, what hesitation could remain? Without a moment's pause after his words, I nodded. Fine, let's get divorced. My agreement to divorce left Shin Xiaoxing utterly astonished. He stared at me as if seeing a ghost. Mu Nian, are you really sure you want to divorce me? I'm certain. I nodded firmly. We'll get divorced tomorrow. But before that, you must return all my money to me. It's always about money with you. Are you obsessed with it? Is money all you care about? Shin Xiaoxing asked through gritted teeth. Yes, money is all I care about. Shin Xiaoxing didn't believe I truly wanted a divorce. You're utterly unreasonable. Listen, Mu Nian, don't think pregnancy gives you license to do as you please. I'm not doing as I please. The child isn't an obstacle. Just sign the papers, and I'll terminate the pregnancy tomorrow. Seeing my resolute expression, Shin Xiaoxing staggered back. Mu Nian, have you lost your mind? How could you even say something like abandoning our child? My unwavering determination to divorce left Shin Xiaoxing stunned, in anger. He slammed the door and stormed out. He left and never came back, and I didn't bother about him, lying down to continue resting. The next morning, I was startled awake by knocking at the door. Shin Xiaoxing's guard Xiaoli stood at the door with breakfast, looking displeased. The chief asked me to bring you breakfast. Seeing Xiaoli, I didn't look pleased either, replying sharply, put it over there. Xiaoli placed the breakfast on the table, his gaze falling on my face. I looked at him coldly. What are you staring at? The delivery's done, now get lost. I've always been kind to others and never put on airs, which is why Shin Xiaoxing's guards always saw me as an easy target, especially this Xiaoli. He's Song Kuer's fellow townsman and shares her sentiments, always subtly targeting me. Seeing me suddenly so assertive, Xiaoli was startled, then quickly grew furious. What's your attitude? Last night you got jealous and drove the chief to sleep in the office. And today when the chief is being this humble, you still won't back down. Let me tell you, Mu Nian, you'd better rein it in. Don't push the chief too far, otherwise, you'll regret it. Are you threatening me? Who do you think you are? Just a dog by Song Kuer's side, yet you act all high and mighty. I'm warning you to show me some respect, piss me off, and I'll expose all your and Song Kuer's dirty little secrets." As my words fell, Xiao Li's face turned pale, and he hurriedly left without another word. Xiao Li's reaction surprised me. I only warned him because I remembered how he helped Song Kuer against me in my past life, but looking at Xiao Li's panicked and frightened expression, could there really be some shady dealings between him and Song Kuer that shouldn't see the light of day? I became secretly vigilant in my heart. After breakfast, I went to the office again to see my supervisor, who told me a colleague wanted my housing allocation quota. However, the other party currently doesn't have much money and can only offer me 4,000 yuan. I knew the house price would rise later. 4,000 was indeed too little, but I had no other choice. The house absolutely couldn't be given cheaply to Song Kuer. I agreed to the deal, took the 4,000 and transferred the housing allocation quota to them. Since I'm divorcing Shen Xiaoxing, there's no way I can continue living here. I'll have to quit my job too. Thinking about the developments 30 years from now, I secretly started forming a plan in my heart. I need to leave this place, head south to do business, and become one of the first to get rich. With the plan in mind, I quickly returned home, only to push open the door and find Song Kuer sitting in my living room. Seeing me, Song Kuer flashed a sarcastic smile. "Oh, the busy man finally returns. What are you here for?" "Just came to see you. You got beaten black and blue by Xiaoxing. Even bleeding. As your neighbor, how could I not come check on you?" Song Kuer circled around me with a bright smile, lowering her voice viciously. "Why don't you just die? How dare you play the divorce card as a retreat? Do you even have the guts to divorce? If you dare divorce Xiaoxing, the sun will rise from the west." "Of course I dare to divorce, on one condition: you return my money." "Listen, Song Kuer, I couldn't care less about your affair with Shen Xiaoxing. Do whatever you want, but you must give my money back." "What if I don't pay it back?" "If you don't repay, I'll report you and Shen Xiaoxing to the military district for your illicit affair. Let's see how you two can keep living here after that." Song Kuer's face changed. "You wouldn't dare." "Why wouldn't I dare? Everyone knows about your shady dealings with Shen Xiaoxing these past 2 years. Shen Xiaoxing pulled strings to transfer you here as his secretary, then funneled all our family's money to you. You used my money to buy appliances, my money for clothes and jewelry, living the high life. All the neighbors have seen it. If the authorities investigate, your dirty secrets with Shen Xiaoxing will be exposed." "Xiaoxing was just helping me. Are you limbless, a dying cripple?" I sneered. "There are far more deserving people around than you. Why would Shen Xiaoxing help only you, a lone man and woman? Thieves and prostitutes." "The public sees everything clearly." Song Kuer grew fearful. "What exactly do you want? Don't you know this will ruin Xiaoxing?" "So what? What's that got to do with me?" I sneered at Song Kuer. 5. "I'm giving you just 3 days. Return my money immediately, or the only thing awaiting you and Shen Xiaoxing is complete ruin." Song Kuer left in disgrace, throwing down threats as she went, telling me to wait and see. I'm waiting, all right, waiting with boiling blood. If we don't provoke her, why would she act in advance? I'm waiting for Song Kuer's dirty tricks. Let's see who dies faster this time. The next 2 days passed quietly. Shen Xiaoxing stayed at the military barracks and never returned. I know he's waiting for me to go apologize and make up with him in his dreams. I don't have time to bother with him. I've been busy handling matters. Since I'm parting ways with Shen Xiaoxing, I naturally wouldn't let him and Song Kuer off easy. I sold everything valuable I'd bought for the house. The things that couldn't be sold, I gave away to others. I gave all the sweaters I knitted for Shen Xiaoxing and the new clothes I bought to Instructor Zhang's wife at the East End. She was very grateful and pulled me aside to chat. Sister Zhang asked me, "Has your chief Shen not come home these past few days?" I nodded, and Sister Zhang looked at me sympathetically. "Nian Nian, you're a good person, and good people often get taken advantage of. There are some things I don't want to say, but I just can't bear to see you treated this way. That Song Kuer is no good. You need to be careful around her." "I know, and I don't care anymore. Let them do whatever they want. It has nothing to do with me." "But you're pregnant now. Even if just for the sake of the baby in your belly, you should plan for yourself. Besides, some things won't be spared even if you keep tolerating and sacrificing yourself." Sister Zhang's words hit the nail on the head. In my past life, didn't I keep tolerating and sacrificing myself, only to be schemed against by them in the end? I nodded. "Sister Zhang, thank you for the reminder. I'll be careful. Even a rabbit will bite when cornered, let alone a person. If they push me too far, I won't let them off easy." Seeing that I took her words to heart, Sister Zhang lowered her voice. "You should watch out for that Xiaoli by Chief Shen's side. He has an improper relationship with that Song Kuer." Upon hearing this, I immediately pressed further. How could it not be normal, Sister Zhang? I won't hide it from you, that Xiaoli is no good, seeing I'm easy to talk to, he's been helping Song Kuo bully me all along. Sister Zhang's expression turned serious at my words, she lowered her voice. That Xiaoli and Song Kuo are having an affair, I saw it with my own eyes. Sister Zhang's words made my heart skip a beat. I immediately recalled how Xiaoli had looked like a startled bird when I threatened to expose his and Song Kuo's shameful dealings that day. So Xiaoli and Song Kuo really do have an improper relationship. But didn't Song Kuo like Shen Xiaoxing? Why would she get involved with Xiaoli? I immediately asked sister-in-law Zhang, how could Song Kuo take a liking to Xiaoli? A security guard. I always thought she was trying to flirt with Shen Xiaoxing. I don't know about that, but I'm not lying. When Song Kuo first came here, I saw with my own eyes Xiaoli coming out of her house in the middle of the night, not just once, but several times. At that time, I thought they were dating, until later I noticed Song Kuo seemed to have her eyes on your family's chief Shen. Mrs. Zhang stopped at the hint and said no more. I fell into deep thought. In my past life, Xiaoli had always defended Song Kuo, constantly helping her distort the truth to bully me. A big reason Shen Xiaoxing didn't believe me was because Xiaoli was aiding in the mischief. In my past life, I never understood why Xiaoli would twist the truth. I always treated him well, but now hearing Mrs. Zhang say this, finally reached a conclusion. So Xiaoli was also one of Song Kuo's admirers, charging into battle for the woman he loves. That explains why Xiaoli helped Song Kuo target me like that. Aunt Zhang's words made me secretly wary, so I paid extra attention to Xiaoli and Song Kuo. Little did I know what I'd uncover. Sure enough, I spotted something suspicious. Xiaoli actually sneaked into Song Kuo's house at night. I'm not sure if they're having an affair, but a man and a woman alone together in the dead of night can't be up to any good. Remembering how helpless and pitiful I was when they schemed against me in my past life, a surge of hatred welled up inside me. I'll make this despicable couple pay. I grabbed a basin and a stick from the house. Standing outside Song Kuo's door, I started banging loudly while shouting, "Thief, catch the thief." 6. The noise of me banging the basin in the dead of night was so loud that soon all the neighbors woke up and came running to see what was happening, pointing anxiously at Song Kuo's house. I said, I saw someone sneaking into Comrade Song's house when I went to the bathroom at night. It must be a thief. Don't let them get away. No one doubted my words, especially when Sister Zhang immediately instructed Zhang to lead people to block the windows at the back. The others followed me to guard the front door and make a commotion. After some ruckus, the door finally opened. Song Kuo and Xiaoli appeared before the crowd. I deliberately raised my voice. Oh, it's Xiaoli. What are you doing at Comrade Song's house in the middle of the night? I have some business with Comrade Song, Xiaoli stammered in reply. Business? What kind of business can't be discussed during the day and has to be talked about at 2 a.m. Exactly, what's so urgent to discuss in the dead of night? Unless you two. Auntie Zhang raised her voice, and Song Kuo immediately denied. We have no relationship whatsoever. Xiaoli was just concerned about my health and came to check on me. Who would believe such nonsense? Nobody bought it. Someone deliberately remarked. Could Comrade Song and Xiaoli be dating? There's nothing wrong with that. No need to be so secretive about it. No, we're not dating. Song Kuo shot me a venomous glare, persistently denying any special relationship with Xiaoli. Xiaoli also denied it, insisting that he only came to check on the sick Song Kuo out of concern, fearing something might happen to her. The commotion only ended when Shen Xiaoxing arrived and dispersed the noisy crowd. With Shen Xiaoxing's order, the onlookers scattered, and I lost interest in the spectacle. Preparing to leave, seeing her backer arrive, Song Kuo immediately burst into tears. Xiaoxing, Xiaoli, and I are completely innocent. He was just worried about me and came to bring me medicine. I never expected Comrade Mu to slander us like this. As Song Kuo burst into tears, Xiaoli also started complaining of unfair treatment. Shen Xiaoxing scolded me with a dark expression. All you do all day is stir up trouble. Why can't you do something proper? Do you have any idea your actions could drive someone to their death? I sneered. I only called for help because I saw someone sneaking into Comrade Song's house in the dead of night and got worried. Is that wrong? Moreover, with so many guards around, why is Xiaoli the only one sneaking into Comrade Song's house late at night? As I said this, both Xiaoli and Song Kuo changed their expressions, and Shen Xiaoxing also showed a suspicious look. He's no fool, otherwise he wouldn't have risen to such a high position. Seeing Shen Xiaoxing look at them, Song Kuo immediately fell to the ground pretending to faint. Then she was rushed to the hospital. I sneered and turned back into the house. I had seen it clearly. Song Kuer's gaze at me was filled with utmost venom. Needless to say, she hated me to the core. With my interference exposing her relationship with Xiaoli, Song Kuer knew full well that I was aware of their dirty little secret. Unwilling to let her affair with Xiaoli become public, Song Kuer had no choice but to find a way to cover it up, to eliminate me, her greatest threat. I was certain Song Kuer would make her move soon. What I fear is her not making a move. Now we're getting to the fun part, setting the trap. In the morning, I got up to go to work, and everyone I met along the way was talking about Song Kuer and Xiaoli's affair. There were all sorts of rumors. I arrived at work in a cheerful mood and felt great all day. At noon, Shen Xiaoxing came to my workplace and started scolding me as soon as we met. The matter from last night has been clarified. It was indeed Xiaoli who went to check on Kuer because he was worried she might have an episode. There's nothing between them, I scoffed. Whether they have a relationship or not is none of my business. Did you really need to come here specifically to tell me this? Of course I didn't come specifically to tell you this, Moon Yanyan. Your recent behavior has been utterly unacceptable. To target Kuer, you actually tried to slander her by implying she had an improper relationship with Xiaoli. Have you ever considered how much damage such accusations could do to a woman's reputation? I laughed in anger. When did I ever slander them? I just saw someone sneaking into Song Kuer's house and assumed it was a thief. If Xiaoli was genuinely just concerned about Kuer and wanted to check on her, couldn't he have knocked on the door openly like a normal person? Why did he have to skulk around like a criminal? True love indeed. Shen Xiaoxing was still defending Song Kuer. 7. Xiaoli didn't want to disturb the neighbors, so he didn't knock. But you, what are you doing staying up all night watching Song Kuer? I'm warning you. I haven't settled accounts with you over last time yet. Don't go causing more trouble for me. You're so ridiculous. I've already explained clearly that I shouted because I thought it was a thief. Are you just not understanding or deliberately picking a fight? Shen Xiaoxing slammed the table angrily. What kind of attitude is that? Song Kuer ended up in the hospital because of this incident you caused. And you still can't recognize your own mistake. I'm not wrong. If I must have made a mistake, it was marrying you in the first place. Didn't you want a divorce? I agree. Let's get divorced now. Go find whoever you want to be with. But before the divorce, you must return all my money. Shen Xiaoxing still thought I was the meek Moon Yanyan who only had eyes for him, and actually dared to glare at me with such arrogance. I won't indulge him. Want to make a scene? Let's see whose face gets tarnished. I turned up the volume while shouting and began wiping away tears. I've worked hard to save money for years to prepare for having a child, yet you gave it all to Song Kuer to buy appliances. Last time, you took my salary without a word and gave it to Song Kuer for clothes, and the time before that, you used my wages to buy her cosmetics. My voice boomed at its loudest, and Shen Xiaoxing's face turned livid as he rushed to cover my mouth. I bit his hand hard. He didn't expect me to actually bite him, and the pain made him let go and push me away. I immediately lay down and started making a huge scene. Didn't Shen Xiaoxing say I was an unreasonable shrew? Today I'll show him what a truly unreasonable shrew looks like. I lay on the ground throwing a tantrum, airing all the despicable things Shen Xiaoxing had done. Shen Xiaoxing couldn't stay any longer. He still had some dignity to maintain. He left with a face as dark as thunder. My colleagues and supervisors overheard everything, and their sympathy for me reached its peak. Several married female comrades came to persuade me, while subtly inquiring about Shen Xiaoxing and Song Kuer's affairs. In my past life, I cared about saving face, swallowing my grievances when bullied, believing family shame shouldn't be aired, and not wanting others to look down on me. In this lifetime, I have no intention of staying with Shen Xiaoxing, so why should I cover up his disgrace? I spilled everything about Song Kuer and Shen Xiaoxing's affair like pouring beans from a bamboo tube. I know the affair between Song Kuer and Shen Xiaoxing will soon spread far and wide, with so much gossip flying around. I want to see if Song Kuer will be driven to despair. After work in the evening, Shen Xiaoxing was unexpectedly at home for once. His hand, which I had bitten, was bandaged as he sat gloomily on the living room chair. I walked past him as if I didn't see him and went straight back to the bedroom. Shen Xiaoxing had never been treated so coldly before. Every time we argued, I'd swallow my pride and go apologize within 2 hours, whether it was my fault or not. I always made the first move to reconcile. This time we'd been in a cold war for several days, and today I even bit him without showing any intention of backing down. Shen Xiaoxing sat outside for quite a while before finally losing patience. He pushed open the bedroom door. What's for dinner? Eat whatever you want. Why ask me? I replied coldly. What's with your attitude, Moon Yanyan? I haven't even settled the matter of you biting me, and you're giving me this look. Then how should we settle the matter of you hitting me? I retorted sharply. Shen Xiaoxing was choked up. After a brief silence while looking at the wound on my forehead, he said, I didn't mean to. I've already apologized to you. I scoffed and turned my head away. He stood at the doorway for a moment before patiently walking in. Let me take you out for a meal. What would you like to eat? What meal? If you have money, hurry up and pay back your debts. You owe me quite a sum. I extended my hand. Shen Xiaoxing's forehead veins bulged as he struggled to contain his rising anger for reasons unknown. Nian Nian, I know you're upset about me helping Song Kuo. I failed to consider your feelings before. That was my mistake, and I promise it won't happen again. I stared at Shen Xiaoxing as if discovering a new continent. What do you mean? I've made things clear with Song Kuo. From now on, she shouldn't come to me for help. She can contact security instead. I've repaid her for saving me by finding her a job and assisting her this much. I won't interfere in her affairs anymore. Let's just focus on our life together. 8. That sounds somewhat human, but who knows if it's true or not. Anyway, I don't believe it. Shen Xiaoxing pulled me up. Let's go out to eat. I know you need money. From now on, I'll hand over my salary to you. I don't know what he's really up to. I've never seen this gentle, considerate version of Shen Xiaoxing in either of my lifetimes. I was pulled out by Shen Xiaoxing to have dinner. On the way, we met Song Kuo, her eyes red and swollen. Seeing Shen Xiaoxing and me, she staggered unsteadily, looking pitiful as if a gust of wind could knock her over. Shen Xiaoxing didn't fuss over Song Kuo as he used to, but pretended not to see her and left directly with me. Not far away, I heard Song Kuo calling out from behind. It seems she fell down. Listening to Song Kuo's cries of pain, I silently counted numbers in my heart. 123. When I finished counting to 3, Shen Xiaoxing turned his head. He rushed towards Song Kuo without hesitation. Just like before, I smiled with relief. A leopard can't change its spots. That saying couldn't be more accurate. I didn't plan to eat dinner and went home alone instead. Shen Xiaoxing didn't return until late at night. He tried pushing our bedroom door, but I had locked it from inside. Shen Xiaoxing couldn't come in, so he went to the guest room. In the morning when I got up, Shen Xiaoxing was also awake and had bought breakfast. He smiled at me as if nothing had happened. I got the fried dough sticks and soy milk you like. I sat down expressionlessly and started eating breakfast. Shen Xiaoxing tried to explain. Kuo is in very poor health, suffering from severe anemia. I put down my chopsticks. Who are you trying to disgust first thing in the morning? Shen Xiaoxing was shocked by my icy attitude. He moved his lips, and I immediately followed up. Don't talk to me about irrelevant people or matters. I'm not interested. It affects my mood. Shen Xiaoxing wanted to lose his temper but forcibly held it back, even attempting to explain to me. Nian Nian, I can't just ignore her. She saved me. If it weren't for her rescuing me back then, I would have died long ago. I owe her my life. I've heard enough of this meaningless talk. I put down my chopsticks. Who you choose to help is your business. I don't care. You don't need to keep mentioning that you owe her your life. If it's really so hard to decide, just marry her. I'm ready to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with you anytime. With those words, I stood up and left. Shen Xiaoxing remained seated, watching my retreating figure. I had no idea what was going through his mind. What he thinks has nothing to do with me. After all, even in my previous life, I was neglected and abandoned by him like this. After work in the evening, Shen Xiaoxing came to pick me up at the office. He bought groceries and personally cooked dinner, only realizing during the process that many things were missing. The pots, pans, and utensils I had bought with my own money were all gone. Only the items Shen Xiaoxing had purchased remained. He exclaimed as if discovering a new continent. Nian Nian, it seems like quite a few things are missing from our home. Yes, there were too many things we didn't use, so I gave some away. I see. He didn't quite believe me. Since the items I gave away were either brand new or nearly new, how could they be unusable? We ate in silence, with only the clinking of bowls and chopsticks breaking the quiet. I kept my head down the entire time without saying a word. Shen Xiaoxing kept staring at me. I could feel his gaze, but I didn't respond. Finally, he couldn't hold back anymore and spoke first. Nian Nian, why aren't you wearing your wedding ring? I took my time, sipping half a bowl of soup before replying. I sold the wedding ring. Why would you sell it? Shen Xiaoxing asked in surprise. Why doesn't he know? I smiled wryly. Because I'm short on money. I have no money on me, and I need money. No one is kind enough to give me money willingly, so being broke, I had no choice but to sell my wedding ring. My words left Shen Xiaoxing silent. He knew how much I treasured our wedding rings. After marriage, I kept reminding him to wear his wedding ring, yet he always refused to wear it. Citing inconvenience, all along, it was just me foolishly wearing that self-prepared wedding ring alone. I pushed away my bowl and chopsticks, standing up to return to my room. After taking just a few steps, Shen Xiaoxing's voice came from behind me. When I get my salary, I'll buy you a new ring. 9. I let out a scoff without turning back, and he continued, Song Kuer's body is really too weak, not suitable for military service. I've talked with her and plan to send her back to her hometown for work, so she can be closer to her parents and family for easier care. Shen Xiaoxing's words made me turn around. Did she agree? Shen Xiaoxing nodded. She agreed. Song Kuer is a reasonable person. She also felt she was imposing too much on us and said she'd find an opportunity to apologize to you properly, to clear things up. Upon hearing this, I smiled ambiguously as Shen Xiaoxing continued. Nian Nian. My feelings for Song Kuer are purely gratitude. I've never had romantic feelings for her. If my previous assistance to her caused you misunderstanding, I sincerely apologize. I'm sorry. Such things won't happen again. I simply looked at Shen Xiaoxing with a faint smile, which seemed to unsettle him. Nian Nian, she has already agreed to leave this place. These days she's busy with work handovers, but she said she'll make time to explain things to you. I hope you can talk to her calmly and peacefully. Song Kuer actually wants to meet and discuss this with me in detail. This is good news. I've been waiting for this day for so very long. I smiled and said, great. Tell Song Kuer that I'll be ready to receive her anytime, anywhere. Song Kuer came to see me 3 days later. I can't wait to meet her. Song Kuer still looked as fragile as ever, but the moment she closed the door and confirmed we were alone, she instantly became a different person. She glared at me viciously. Mu Nian, you wretched woman, you must be so pleased to finally drive me away, aren't you? Of course, watching you slink away like a stray dog with its tail between its legs brings me great joy. As my words fell, Song Kuer's face turned ashen. You set me up, playing hard to get by threatening divorce to force Xiaoxing to send me away, you shameless bitch. I underestimated you. What you underestimated about me goes beyond this. There are many things you don't know. Would you like me to spell them out for you in detail? I smiled at her and said, I know about your affair with Shaoli. I know you've set your sights on Shen Xiaoxing and tried to seduce him. I know you've been plotting against me. You must have prepared quite a few tricks for today's visit, haven't you? You, how did you know? Song Kuer was startled by my bluntness, her domineering attitude vanishing instantly as she began stammering. How I know is none of your concern. Now let me guess what you're planning to do next. You intend to fake a fall and frame me. Shaoli is already waiting outside, ready to rush in when you scream and accuse me of harming you. Smiling, I stepped closer to the pale-faced Song Kuer. So go ahead and fall while screaming for help. I'm waiting for your performance. Song Kuer froze in fear, staring at me in terror. I grabbed her hair and slammed her head against the nearby table. As Song Kuer opened her mouth to scream, a rag was swiftly and forcefully stuffed into it. I casually picked up the brick I'd prepared earlier and began striking Song Kuer's abdomen repeatedly. Didn't she slander me in her past life, claiming I pushed her and caused her to lose her uterus, making her infertile? This lifetime, I'll grant her wish and let her have what she desires. I struck Song Kuer's abdomen fiercely, blow after blow, watching her face contort and change color, seeing blood flow from beneath her. Only when I saw her fall into a genuine coma did I release Song Kuer. Then I raised my voice and shouted, someone come quickly, there's been an accident. Shaoli was the first to rush in, and without even looking, he started yelling, intentional assault. How could you harm Comrade Song like this? You're utterly vicious. I smiled warmly at Shaoli. Stop dawdling, hurry and take her to the hospital. If we're late, she might never wake up. After all, she's hemorrhaging from a miscarriage, and if she loses her child, she might not even keep her uterus. You, how did you know? Shaoli was stunned. How I know is none of your concern. Just listen to me and get her to the hospital. Delay could cost her life. You don't want people knowing you're the father of the child in her belly, do you? Pale and trembling, Shaoli picked up the bleeding Song Kuer and rushed to the hospital. With me following close behind, Song Kuer's uterus could not be saved, it was removed. Just like in the previous life, Shaoli waited outside the operating room the entire time, his face deathly pale. I stood with my arms crossed, watching Shaoli and couldn't stop laughing. After several hours of surgery, Song Kuer was wheeled out of the operating room unconscious. I asked Shaoli with a smile, aren't you going to inform your commander? Given Song Kuer's current condition, Commander Shen Xiaoxing must be extremely worried. How about I watch over Song Kuer for you while you personally go and notify Shen Xiaoxing? Shaoli didn't dare to inform Shen Xiaoxing. He fell to his knees with a thud in front of me. I looked at Shaoli coldly and said, now you're scared. Weren't you fearless when you were having fun with Song Kuer, still trying to frame me for a comeback? Dream on. Xiaoli kept kowtowing incessantly until his forehead was bleeding, while I coldly watched this despicable and shameless creature. Only when I saw him bleeding profusely did I slowly call for a stop. Hold on, how do you plan to handle this matter? I'll make Kuer leave this place. I promise to make her give up her intentions and never disturb you and the chief again. Is that so? I laughed a few times. No, how could you leave? Song Kuer must not go. Please, I beg you. Xiaoli continued to kowtow, but I waved my hand to stop him. I have a way to make your wishes come true. When I returned home, Shen Xiaoxing was still cooking in the kitchen. Over the past 3 days, it was as if he had become a different person, making dinner every evening. Seeing me return, Shen Xiaoxing flashed me a smile. Wait 2 minutes, the food will be ready soon. I poured myself a glass of water and sipped slowly while Shen Xiaoxing busied himself setting the table. 10. He served me a large bowl of rice. Eat more. Pregnant women have bigger appetites. From now on you'll need 2 bowls. I took it without a word and began eating with my head down, while Shen Xiaoxing eagerly served me dishes. After eating most of the meal in silence, Shen Xiaoxing finally spoke up. So, Nian Nian, has Song Kuer come to see you? She did. I nodded. What did you talk about? Nothing much. I continued eating. Shen Xiaoxing didn't get the answer he wanted. So he probed further by asking me, did she mention when she's leaving? You'll have to ask her that question yourself. I don't know. As soon as I finished speaking, Shen Xiaoxing's expression froze slightly. I continued eating with my head down, knowing full well that Shen Xiaoxing must have looked for Song Kuer but couldn't find her. If he couldn't find anyone, naturally he wouldn't know what Song Kuer told me. He was worried, which is why he came to fish for information, to be honest. His concern for Song Kuer was genuine. What a pity, I sighed inwardly. The sound of a car came from outside, and soon Xiaoli rushed in. Chief, something's happened. Comrade Song is in trouble. Shen Xiaoxing stood up abruptly, and I also put down my chopsticks to look at him. Shen Xiaoxing didn't look at me. His gaze fell on Xiaoli, staring at the injury on Xiaoli's forehead, his expression turning extremely grim. What happened? Xiaoli didn't dare to look at me, keeping his head down while pretending to wipe tears. It's something very serious. Her uterus was removed, and she's now unconscious in the hospital. Chief, Comrade Song, she's in such a terrible state. Hearing Xiaoli's words, Shen Xiaoxing wore an expression of disbelief. How is that possible? How could something like this happen out of nowhere? Chief, you should go to the hospital right away. As Xiaoli's voice fell, Shen Xiaoxing immediately started walking. When he reached the door, I coughed, and hearing my voice, he stopped in his tracks. Nian Nian, I'm going to the hospital to check on Song Kuer. I'll be back soon. I looked at Shen Xiaoxing and said word by word, Shen Xiaoxing, are you sure about this? Nian Nian, this is not the time to be stubborn. Kuer is unconscious after the incident. I must go see her and find out what happened. Since Shen Xiaoxing made his own decision, it's beyond my control. I nodded and stopped trying to intervene. Shen Xiaoxing left and never returned. I calmly washed up and went to bed. Before sleeping, I checked my money. Only 5,000 yuan remained. This amount is far from enough to start a business down south. The next morning, I was startled awake from my sleep, opening my eyes to see Shen Xiaoxing already rushing to my bedside. He grabbed my collar and yanked me out of bed. You have such a wicked heart, Mu Nian. How could you be so vicious and shameless? Why would you do this to Song Kuer? She was already prepared to leave. Why couldn't you just let her go? Shen Xiaoxing's grip on me was painfully tight, making it hard to breathe. I clawed at his hand with all my strength until the pain forced him to release me. Mu Nian, you've disappointed me so much. For committing such a heinous act, you can look forward to eating prison food. I didn't say a word, just looked coldly at Shen Xiaoxing, waiting for his outburst to subside before I spoke to him. Don't you want to hear my explanation? What's there to explain? You did such a terrible thing to her, caused her such harm. As a woman, don't you understand the pain of infertility? You've made it impossible for me to forgive you. 11. Fine, then don't forgive me. Shen Xiaoxing, if I've done wrong, send me to jail. You're utterly incorrigible, absolutely incorrigible. Don't you feel even the slightest remorse or regret at this moment? How innocent Song Kuer was. He kept yelling at me for a long while until he was completely exhausted before stopping. Mu Nian, what are you going to do now? What do you plan to do? Let the police handle everything. Hand me over to the police and you're finished. Mu Nian, this is a crime. You'll be sentenced. Fine, then sentence me. I'm not afraid anyway. You're utterly incorrigible. Shen Xiaoxing kicked over a chair in fury. After punching the wall a few more times, I watched him coldly, waiting for him to speak first. In our past life, he was the one who initiated the divorce with me, and it seems this life is following the same pattern. As expected, After venting his anger for a while, Shin Xiaoxing calmed down. Nian Nian, I don't want you to go to prison, do you understand? I don't want you to go to jail. I don't want to go to prison either. I nodded. You made a mistake this time, and you must admit it. Go find Song Kuer and apologize sincerely, and then, just an apology, I pressed further. Of course not, you've hurt Song Kuer, this is serious, you can't just do nothing to make amends. What do I need to do to make it right? First, go hide in the countryside for a while, I'll calm Song Kuer down, stay away until I've settled things with her, then I'll bring you back. Just like in the previous life, he didn't mention divorce at all, instead making me sign an apology letter and sending me back to the countryside to rest during pregnancy until everything was settled. I couldn't help but laugh. Alright, I promise you. Shin Xiaoxing quickly sent the apology letter for me to sign. I knew it was actually the divorce papers, so I signed my name without even reading it. Seeing my signature, Shin Xiaoxing sighed in relief. Nian Nian, pack your things first, I'll send you away. I nodded. I have no money. Can you give me my money back? Shin Xiaoxing agreed. I don't know where he got the money from. Probably borrowed it, anyway. That same night he brought back 2,000 yuan and gave it to me. I put the money in my pocket and kept it close to me. On the day of departure, Shaoli gave me another 3,000. This is the money that originally belonged to me, which Song Kuer deceitfully took from Shin Xiaoxing. Now that it's returned to its rightful owner, I accepted it without any burden. On the day I left, Shin Xiaoxing was supposed to personally see me off, but something came up last minute and he stood me up again. Maybe it's for the best. I had no intention of returning to his hometown to be treated like a beast of burden. Now that the divorce is finalized, handling the abortion matter will be much easier. I went to the hospital to abort the unwanted child in my womb, then after a month of recovery, I took 10,000 yuan and headed south by bus. The days of struggling alone away from home were painful yet joyful. Living for myself made me give it my all. I fear neither hardship nor exhaustion. My sole focus is on making money. After a year of hard work away from home, I finally managed to acquire my own shop through my own efforts. While purchasing wholesale goods, I encountered someone I once knew, a distant cousin from Shin Xiaoxing's hometown whom I'd only met briefly. Shin Xiaoxing's distant cousin was visibly shocked to see me. Nian Nian, what are you doing here? Do you know Shin Xiaoxing has been searching for you for a long time? I quietly observed Shin Xiaoxing's distant cousin as she informed me that his mother had suffered an accident, leaving her paralyzed and in need of care. Only after calling Shin Xiaoxing did he realize I hadn't returned to his hometown. Shin Xiaoxing's distant cousin asked me, "Why did you go south to do business?" I smiled faintly. Didn't Shin Xiaoxing tell you about this? You should ask him for clearer details. What about your child? It should have been born by now. I remember you were pregnant at the time, and Shin Xiaoxing also said you were several months along when you left. The child died. It's gone. 12. Shin Xiaoxing's cousin's eyes widened in surprise. I was busy attending to customers and didn't continue chatting with her. I never expected Shin Xiaoxing to find me. One night after I finished work, he suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He was carrying bags of stuff in his hands and called me affectionately just like before. Nian Nian. I looked at him indifferently. He smiled apologetically. I heard you were here. Nian Nian, why did you come here without saying a word? You made me search everywhere for you. What do you want from me? Aren't you married? Shouldn't you be spending eternity in love with Song Kuer? Why come looking for me now? Exposed by me directly, Shin Xiaoxing's face turned red with what actually seemed like shame. Nian Nian, I didn't mean to deceive you. It's just that Song Kuer was in such a terrible state back then, and she insisted it was your doing. I didn't want you to go to jail. For your sake and our unborn child's, I had no choice but to agree to divorce you and marry her. I never intended to actually marry her. It was just a temporary measure. I just couldn't bear to see you imprisoned or suffering. I couldn't help but laugh. Shin Xiaoxing, do you really think I'd believe you now? Do you still take me for the fool I once was? Shin Xiaoxing's expression kept changing as he offered his first humble apology. Nian Nian, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Enough. If you came here to apologize to me, I've received it. As for whether I accept it or not, that's none of your concern. You may leave. Nian Nian, I want to see our child. I bought gifts for the baby. This statement made me burst into laughter, tears streaming from my eyes. Shin Xiaoxing looked at me at a complete loss, and I laughed for a long time, truly finding it utterly ridiculous. Finally, tired from laughing, I said, Shin Xiaoxing, where did you get the confidence that I would give birth to your bastard child? Shin Xiaoxing's face turned from red to white, which was quite amusing. I continued laughing. You really think highly of yourself, don't you? Divorcing me to marry your beloved Song Kuer, while keeping me in the dark to bear your children, carry on your family line, and take care of your parents, serving you like an old maid for life. Don't you think you're utterly shameless? I'm not. You're this kind of person. Don't deny it. Otherwise, why would you marry Song Kur? Why were you in such a hurry to send me away? Why did it take you over a year after I left to think of contacting me, if you had even a shred of conscience? You wouldn't have abandoned me when I was pregnant, would you? Let me guess why you came looking for me. Judging by your appearance, things must not be going well for you. After all, Chief Shin usually travels with bodyguards. Where's your loyal guard Shaoli now? Shin Shaoxing was speechless. I continued laughing. You picked up a worn-out shoe that Shaoli had played with and cherished it like a treasure. Now you're getting your just desserts, aren't you? Do you know why you've ended up in this situation? It's because I reported you. When I left a letter for your competitor. It was you. You're the one who reported me. Why? He actually had the nerve to ask me why. Shin Shaoxing, did you think I left deceived and ignorant? Wrong. All of this was my design. At this point, I have nothing left to hide. I want to see the priceless expression on Shin Shaoxing's disgusting face when he learns the truth. I know Shaoli and Song Kur are plotting against me. I know they're having an affair. I know Song Kur's act of saving you back then was fake. It was a scheme by both Shaoli and Song Kur to deceive you, just to get you to arrange a good job for her. Who would have thought you'd fall for it so easily? So they changed their plan at the last minute. Shin Shaoxing's expression turned grim. I could tell his heart was being torn apart. I know you've shifted your affections to Song Kur. How could someone as vile and filthy as you hold a high position? So, I gave you all a grand gift. Now that you know Song Kur deceived you and your position is at risk, you harmed her and Shaoli, leaving them disabled. And now you've lost your job too. I took a deep breath and looked at Shin Shaoxing's pale face. This was all part of the grand gift I carefully planned for you. Do you like my present? Shin Shaoxing turned livid with rage at my bluntness. But I just kept smiling and added fuel to the fire. You treated someone else's cast-off like a treasure, then lost your chance at promotion and wealth because of that trash, and now you dare dream of getting back together with me, even expecting me to bear your children. What gives you the right? Your audacity. Shin Shaoxing jumped up in furious desperation to hit me, but I wasn't about to tolerate it. Help, assault, harassment. Screaming, I delivered a heavy kick to his groin. Shin Shaoxing doubled over in pain as bystanders gathered upon hearing my cries for help. I accused Shin Shaoxing of assaulting me, and soon well-meaning citizens escorted him to the police station. Once an esteemed figure, the now destitute Shin Shaoxing finds no one willing to indulge him. He was fined, reprimanded, and detained overnight before being let out in disgrace. He lost his job, lost everything, and then his mother at home had an accident. Shin Shaoxing still wants to keep using me as his fool, thinking I love him and can be deceived by his sweet words, but having lived a second life, how could I possibly jump into that fire pit again? Shin Shaoxing didn't leave, he stayed here the whole time. Seeing my business was doing well, he even schemed to make me change my mind. But heaven couldn't stand it anymore. One rainy night, he got hit by a car and lost both his legs. Shin Shaoxing became disabled, destined to spend his life in a wheelchair. This was his retribution. He had tried every means to get me to visit him. I refused. I've already seen his fate, and I'm satisfied. There's no need to disgust myself again. From now on, I'll walk my flowery path while he lives his destitute life. Perfect. Story 2, to test whether Wen Bian was truly loyal. His girlfriend drugged him with aphrodisiac and then quietly left. After the drug took effect, his face turned flushed, his breathing became heavy, and his frustrated eyes were wet, filled with uncontrollable lust. He said in a hoarse voice, "Jian Rao, help me." His voice trembled slightly, and it strongly tugged at my heartstrings, but I just turned around, closed the door, ran to the bathroom, took out my phone, and called 110. I whispered, "Hello, my friend seems to have been drugged. Please come quickly, the address is," outside the door, my childhood friend was still pleading pitifully, "Jian Rao, since we were young, didn't you like me the most? How could you bear to see me suffer?" He didn't know that liking him was something from my previous life. He also didn't know how miserable my end was in the previous life. In this life, how could I possibly repeat the same mistakes? Dong, dong, dong. There was a knock on the door. My body reacted faster than my mind. Before I could even think, I opened the door. Wen Bian was standing outside the door, his face flushed, breathing heavily and roughly. His eyes were blurred, his expression pained and frustrated. His eyes were wet, even though he was trying his best to suppress it. The uncontrollable lust could still be seen. I was stunned. Wasn't this the scene from my previous life? Wen Bian said in a hoarse voice, Jian Rao, help me. His voice trembled as he spoke. And anyone could tell how hard he was enduring. His appearance of trying to restrain himself yet helplessly begging strongly tugged at my heartstrings. But after I came to my senses, scenes from my previous life flashed through my mind at high speed. It was as if someone was choking my throat, and I couldn't catch my breath for a long time. When Bian in front of me spoke again, Jian Rao, please help me, okay? His voice, mixed with lust, pulled me back to reality. Before his hand could touch the back of my head, I immediately closed the door and ran into the bathroom. I quickly turned on the faucet, then took out my phone and dialed the police number. The call was quickly connected, and I whispered, "Is this 110? My friend seems to have been drugged. Please come quickly. The address is." When I came out of the bathroom, when Bian outside the door was still pleading pitifully, he slapped the door forcefully, his voice irritable and pitiful, "Jian Rao. Since we were young, didn't you like me the most? How could you have the heart to watch me suffer? Jian Rao, help me. I can't hold on any longer." His voice became hoarser and hoarser, his breathing more and more rapid, and the sound of slapping the door became softer and softer. It seemed that he really couldn't take it anymore, but I still sat firmly in the room, not willing to move a single step. When Bian didn't know that I had liked him in my previous life. He also didn't know how miserably I died after being forced to be his antidote out of worry in the previous life. 2. Cold sweat oozed from my palms. I reminded myself over and over again, "Jian Rao, you must never repeat the same mistakes." When Bian, who had been quiet outside the door for a few minutes, became irritable again, he started ramming the door, trying to break in. I smashed a bottle of beer and tightly held the broken beer bottle, thinking that once he rushed in, I would stab him directly. In short, no matter what method I used, I didn't want to repeat the tragedy of my previous life. Why haven't the police come yet? Bang, 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 again and again, one sound after another. Even the wall slightly shook as the door frame was hit. Looking at the door that shook more and more with each impact, my heart was in my throat. Crash, the door was finally knocked open. Broken wood and shattered wood chips, mixed with falling wall plaster, spilled all over the floor. The door hung crookedly on the door frame, swaying creakily. When Bian's eyes were blood red as he walked towards me step by step, he mumbled incoherently, "Jian Rao, don't be afraid, help me, it'll be over soon, and you'll feel good too." I was forced back into the corner, and I still couldn't avoid the distance between him and me shortening continuously. Finally, he came in front of me. I held half of the beer bottle in the direction of him, my voice filled with a thick sobbing tone. "When Bian, don't come any closer. What do you want to do? I'm scared. If you come any closer, I won't be polite to you. Step back, go back, please." When Bian had a strange smile on his face as he muttered to himself, "Jian Rao, didn't you like me the most? How could you bear to hurt me? Right, help me, it'll be over soon." As he spoke, he reached out and grabbed my collar, trying to tear my clothes, and I also seized the opportunity. The sharp glass of the beer bottle was aimed at his lower abdomen. The moment my clothes were roughly torn open, I finally heard the siren at the door. Immediately after, I saw the police running towards me. When Bian, however, seemed to hear nothing, his face pressed down towards me, trying to kiss me. At this moment, I unceremoniously grabbed half of the beer bottle and sent the sharp glass into his lower abdomen, and even gave it a hard twist. Blood spurted out, flowing down the bottle onto my hand and dripping onto the floor. I seemed to clearly hear the sound of blood hitting the floor. Ah, ah, ah. When Bian's screams rang out, I quickly let go of my hand, covered my chest, and squatted on the ground, crying loudly. When Bian, what are you trying to do? I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. The police quickly stepped forward. After controlling Wen Bian, they quickly grabbed a coat and put it on me. He comforted me softly. "It's okay. Little girl, it's okay, you're safe now." I leaned on the police officer and cried my eyes out. The tightly wound string in my heart finally relaxed. I thought to myself, Yu Xinshin, let's see how you play this out next. Yu Xinshin was Wen Bian's girlfriend, whom he doted on to the extreme. It was she who drugged Wen Bian, then made an excuse to leave, and specifically left me in the holiday villa, just to test whether Wen Bian could be loyal. 3. I stayed at the police station to make a statement, while Wen Bian was taken to the hospital to bandage his wounds and undergo a physical examination. After his blood test report came out, the police began to investigate the people who were with us. I closed my eyes and rested in the lounge, recalling the events of my previous life. In my previous life, after the noise outside the door stopped, I was extremely worried, afraid that Wen Bian was in danger. I opened the door to check, but this turned out to be Wen Bian's trap. He knew that I had liked him since I was a child and would definitely be worried about his safety and opened the door to check. As soon as I opened the door, Wen Bian suddenly rushed in. His strength was terrifying. He pressed me onto the bed, tore my clothes, and took whatever he wanted from me. It was over an hour before he let out a low growl and stopped his actions. At this time, I was covered in bruises all over my body from his roughness. Just then, Yu Xinxin suddenly rushed in with the few people who had left. Looking at the messy scene in the room, Yu Xinxin broke down and cried, "Wen Bian, Jian Rao, you two adulterers, have you no shame?" Yu Xinxin turned to run, but Wen Bian took big steps forward, grabbed her arm, pulled her back, and held her tightly in his arms. Wen Bian carefully kissed the tears sliding down Yu Xinxin's cheeks, looking extremely guilty. "Xinxin, it's not what you think, really, I can explain. Jian Rao is just a tool for me to relieve my desires. I don't know what happened to me. I must have been possessed by a demon to have such lustful thoughts, or it's Jian Rao, maybe she did something to me, so I lost my mind. Yes, that's it. It must be like that." I sat on the bed in shock. Already ashamed of being caught, I was completely dumbfounded in the face of the sudden accusation. I instinctively defended myself. "It's not me. I didn't do it. I don't know." But no one was willing to listen to my defense. They all stared at me with malicious eyes, as if I were some dirty thing. "Jian Rao, I really didn't expect you to be so shameless, knowing that Bian and Xinxin are a couple. You still seduce Bian and take the initiative to climb into his bed. What? Are you really that starved for a man? How about I introduce a couple to you so you can have a good time?" With her eager look, 2 are definitely not enough, 20 might be more like it. They spoke one after another, and their filthy words almost tore me to pieces. When Bian turned a blind eye to this and focused on coaxing Yu Xinxin, "Xinxin, that limited edition bag you like, how about I buy it for you? I'll take you to meet my parents. Let's get engaged as soon as possible, okay?" Yu Xinxin proposed one condition after another. Only after getting enough benefits did she stop crying and start smiling. Her anger shifted to me. "Jian Rao, she did such a shameless thing. Shouldn't she apologize to me?" Seeing that Yu Xinxin had let something slip, Wen Bian immediately agreed. He grabbed my arm, dragged me off the bed, and pulled me in front of Yu Xinxin, forcing me to kneel in front of her and apologize. He didn't even care that I hadn't had time to get dressed properly because of everyone's sudden intrusion. The blue-purple marks on my body were exposed in front of everyone, and they sneered, "Jian Rao, I didn't know you liked such kinky things." After humiliating me enough, Yu Xinxin and Wen Bian left in an embrace, leaving me alone, at a loss. My heart was like dead ashes, because I was too ashamed to speak up. I didn't even dare to call the police and could only pretend that this incident had never happened. From that day on, I completely distanced myself from Wen Bian and hid alone to heal my wounds, but they wouldn't let me go. One day, Wen Bian sent me a message, asking me to go out. He said, "Jian Rao, I want to apologize to you." To give myself an explanation, I chose to go to the appointment. But what I didn't expect was that this was simply a well-planned trap by him. 5. In order to show that he had no feelings for me, Wen Bian asked me out in the name of apologizing, tricked me into drinking a drugged drink, and threw me into a wild orgy party. He also bribed reporters to report on this matter extensively, taking a lot of photos and even videos. Everyone's faces were blurred except mine. I was insulted one after another but knew nothing about it. When I woke up, the news was already all over the place. In the news photos, my face was clearly visible. Overnight, I became infamous. I went crazy looking for Wen Bian and questioned him why he treated me like this. "Wen Bian, what exactly did I do to you that I'm sorry for? Why are you trying to harm me like this? Is it only when I'm dead that you'll let me go?" Wen Bian looked impatient. "Die? Are you saying you want to commit suicide? Who are you trying to scare? If you really wanted to die, you would have died long ago. Besides, what's the big deal? You were just slept with by a few people and took a few photos, right? I slept with you too. Just think of those people as me. Okay, even celebrities have sex tape scandals. Just think of it as you enjoying the treatment of a celebrity." Yu Xinxin also sneered and said, "Jian Rao, last time I definitely couldn't satisfy you alone. I wonder if you had a good time this time. Do you know what this is called? This is retribution. Your retribution." I stared at Wen Bian firmly. "Last time, it was clearly you who tricked me into opening the door and forced yourself on me." Before I could finish speaking, he waved his hand to interrupt me. He said disdainfully, "Jian Rao, who would believe that? Everyone knows that you've liked me since you were a child. If I wanted to sleep with you, would I need to trick you and use force?" His contemptuous eyes stunned me, and Yushinshin laughed even louder. My dignity was trampled under their feet and rubbed hard. In the end, I couldn't stand the whole network mockery and committed suicide by cutting my wrists in the bathtub. On the day I died, reports of Wen Bian and Yushinshin's engagement were overwhelming. Speaking of which, Wen Bian's parents' acceptance of Yushinshin was actually my credit. Wen Bian's parents had been trying hard to make me and Wen Bian. They looked down on Yushinshin very much, but I was exposed to a huge scandal. They felt ashamed of their son. So they gave in on the marriage matter and fulfilled this pair of lovers. They finally got married with everyone's blessings, while I carried a dirty name and returned to the underworld. The more I thought about it, the more excited I became. The overwhelming hatred was about to drown me. At this time, Yushinshin's panicked voice came from the entrance of the police station. "Police officer. What happened to my boyfriend? What's going on?" 6. It turned out that in order to find out the cause and effect of the case, Yushinshin and the others who had left halfway were all found and summoned to the police station. When Bian was drugged, "We called you here to get a preliminary understanding of the situation." After the police officer finished speaking, Yushinshin visibly panicked. "Drugged? How is that possible?" I walked to the door of the lounge, wanting to see her expression at this moment. The moment our eyes met, she immediately got an idea. "It's her. It's Jian Rao. It must be Jian Rao. She's always been coveting my boyfriend, but my boyfriend has no feelings for her at all. She must have drugged my boyfriend with aphrodisiac, just to make my boyfriend lose control so that my boyfriend will be responsible for her." Yushinshin couldn't wait to push all the blame onto me and didn't notice the change in the police officer's expression. "Yushinshin, right," the police officer said seemingly casually. "How do you know that your boyfriend was drugged with aphrodisiac? We didn't tell you that. How do you know?" Yushinshin realized that she had let something slip due to fear and visibly panicked. She was directly invited to the interrogation room and stammered to defend herself. "Well, I guessed it. Jian Rao has always had ill intentions towards my boyfriend. She must have drugged him with aphrodisiac to blackmail my boyfriend into being responsible for her." "Police officer, believe me, I really guessed it. My intuition has always been very accurate. It must be that shameless slut Jian Rao. You should arrest her quickly. She kept biting me." And the others who came out to play together were already terrified when they saw the situation getting serious. They spilled the beans and told everything they knew before the police could interrogate them. "Police officer, it has nothing to do with us. We were just on a team building trip from a project group." Yushinshin said that she drugged Wen Bian to test whether he could be loyal to her. "Yes, and Wen Bian and Jian Rao are childhood friends. Yushinshin has always been jealous, so she deliberately left Jian Rao in the villa." "Yes, yes." She also said that even if Wen Bian couldn't control himself, as long as she showed up in time to catch him in the act, Wen Bian would compensate her well out of guilt. She said that as long as we cooperated, she would thank us well. We didn't collude with her, we just didn't have the nerve to call the police. It turned out that, whether in the previous life or this life, they weren't unaware of the truth. They just bowed down to Yushinshin's sugar-coated bullets. Now that the matter had blown up and they could see that they were about to be implicated, they all ran away quickly. The group of people who had helped Yushinshin accuse and humiliate me in the previous life now all stood on the opposite side of Yushinshin. In order to exonerate themselves, they all, without prior consultation, desperately shifted the blame onto Yushinshin. After all, they could tell the difference between sugar-coated bullets and a crime, and they knew which was more serious. As soon as the police heard this, they immediately knew that Yushinshin was highly suspected. She was detained on the spot, and the remaining people were also kept behind because of the suspicion of being accomplices. Yushinshin kicked up a fuss. "Where's Ian? Where's my boyfriend? He's the victim. He won't hold me accountable. You can't arrest me." She knew very well that at this moment, Wen Bian was her last hope. Unfortunately, Wen Bian was stabbed by me and was still in the hospital receiving treatment. Although Wen Bian couldn't come, I invited 2 other people related to Wen Bian. 7, who drugged my son. Who? A shrill female voice came, and Wen Bian's mother arrived. Behind her were Wen Bian's father and their family lawyer. As soon as Yushinshin saw these 2 people, her legs immediately went weak. I understood what she was afraid of. She really wanted to marry Wen Bian. But if the Wen family knew that she had drugged Wen Bian, then marrying Wen Bian would just be a dream for her. Wen Bian's mother locked her eyes on Yushinshin, strode over, and gave her 2 hard slaps on both sides of her face. "She's clearly not a good person. It's bad enough that she seduced my son, but she even dared to drug him. Police officer, you must investigate her thoroughly. Who knows what kind of low-life people she's associated with. She might even be trying to murder him for his money. Yu Xinshin's face immediately turned pale. Auntie, please listen to me. It wasn't me. It really wasn't me. It was Jian Rao. It was Jian Rao who did it. At this time, Yu Xinshin still didn't forget to frame me, but she was retorted by Wen Bian's mother. Rao Rao grew up under my watch, and she's the daughter-in-law I approve of. If she wanted to sleep with my son, I would even wash my son clean and send him to her bed overnight. Tell me, where would she need such despicable means? Yu Xinshin was taken away and detained, and the scene finally quieted down. When Bian's mother reached out and hugged me, looking full of chagrin, she apologized to me. Rao Rao, were you scared? I'll ask your uncle when to break Wen Bian's legs later to vent your anger. This brat, how dare he treat you like that? Uncle Wen also said to me, I'll definitely make Wen Bian apologize to you properly later. However, instead of waiting for the apology, I received Wen Bian's accusation. 8. After learning that Yu Xinshin was detained, despite the wound on his lower abdomen, Wen Bian quickly rolled off the hospital bed. He pointed at my nose and cursed. Jian Rao, what do you mean? Why did you send Xinshin to the police station? The person who almost hurt you was me, not Xinshin. Why are you causing trouble for her? Xinshin is a girl, and she's been locked up in there for a whole day and night. I don't know how scared she must be. No, I have to go and save her. As he spoke, he pulled out the infusion needle on the back of his hand and was about to run out. Uncle Wen couldn't stand it anymore and slapped him hard, knocking him down on the hospital bed. Seeing this, I held back my nausea and tried to persuade him. Uncle Wen, stop hitting him. It's all my fault. I meddled in things that weren't my business. But at that time, I saw that Wen Bian's condition was clearly not right. I was worried that something might go wrong with his body and that he would miss the best treatment opportunity, so I called the police for help. Mentioning this, Wen Bian's mother threw a stack of test reports in Wen Bian's face. You can't tell right from wrong. Take a good look. See how harmful that drug is to the body. If you had taken more of it, you would have already had kidney failure by now. Rao Rao saved you out of kindness. It's bad enough that you don't appreciate it, but you even dare to scold her. I think you really need a good beating. Apologize to Rao Rao, not just for today's matter, but also for that day. How could you have set your sights on Rao Rao? If the police hadn't arrived in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. When Bian turned his face away and mumbled in a low voice, what consequences could there be? Jian Rao has always liked me, even if I did something to her. Wouldn't she be happy? Uncle Wen was so angry when he heard this that he raised his arm again. When Bian put on a pitiful expression, Dad, if you want to hit me, go ahead, but you must help me get Xinshin out, otherwise, I'll tell the police that I took the drug voluntarily and that none of this has anything to do with Xinshin. I don't believe that you would just stand by and watch me go to jail. Mom and Dad, it was Jian Rao who hurt me. Not only do you not speak up for me, but you're even taking her side. I'm your biological son. Xinshin is your future daughter-in-law. Jian Rao is just an outsider. But before Uncle Wen's slap could land, Wen Bian was brutally punched and kicked by a black figure that rushed out. His nose and mouth were bleeding, and he saw stars. He was staggering and couldn't even stand steadily. I took a closer look and saw that my dad had come. As soon as I saw my family member, my tears couldn't be held back any longer and flowed down like a burst dam. Dad! I cried and threw myself into his arms. Why did you come so late? I'm so scared, Dad. My dad held my shoulders and looked me up and down several times. After confirming that I wasn't injured, he hugged me tightly, while patting my back to soothe my emotions. He said sternly, Wen Bian, this is attempted rape, isn't it? You still can't say anything decent. I'm telling you. I'm going to send you to jail and make sure you serve a long sentence. The Wen family's parents knew they were in the wrong and didn't dare to speak up too much for Wen Bian. Uncle Wen shouted angrily, Wen Bian, apologize now. Wen Bian reluctantly said sorry. My dad was so angry that he laughed instead. Is that an apology? Seeing this, Uncle Wen kicked Wen Bian in the back of his knee. Wen Bian was caught off guard, and his knee hit the ground heavily, making him kneel right in front of me. His eyes turned red from the pain. He was full of resentment but didn't dare to say anything. My dad protected me behind him and said, just kneeling isn't enough. It can't be that easy. Let me say it again. I've already reported Wen Bian for attempted rape. Everything will be decided by the court. Wen Bian panicked instantly. Mom and Dad, I won't really be arrested and sent to jail, will I? I don't want to go. I don't want to go. 9. My dad took me away, since the Wen family's parents knew they were in the wrong. They didn't dare to stop us, they could only watch as my dad and I gave Wenbian a good beating and then left with our heads held high. They had already felt sorry for Wenbian being drugged, and seeing their son in such a bewitched state, they naturally hated Yu Xinshin to the core. No matter how much Wenbian made a fuss, they refused to let Yu Xinshin go. However, with their efforts, Wenbian wasn't detained and stayed outside to recuperate from his injuries. Wenbian couldn't persuade his parents and secretly came to me. Jian Rao, I really don't understand, why do you have to pursue this? What's there for you to pursue? I didn't do anything to you. Besides, you stabbed me. If anyone should pursue this, it should be me holding you accountable, right? Moreover, if I had agreed to sleep with you, shouldn't you be happy? What are you playing at now? I took a deep breath and once again confirmed the fact that Wenbian was mentally ill. I took a moment to calm down and then kicked him hard in his still unhealed lower abdomen, because I put all my strength into that kick. His wound was torn open by me, and the bright red blood quickly soaked through his clothes. I squatted down on the ground far away, holding my head, and shouted loudly, "Don't come near me, Wenbian, don't come near me." I looked so terrified as if I had been greatly stimulated. My dad rushed over in a hurry, seeing this. He immediately had the people throw Wenbian, who was screaming and clutching his stomach, out. When Wenbian's parents arrived and saw Wenbian's pitiful state, and then thought about the reasons behind my actions, they not only didn't blame me but also apologized to me in various ways. Rao Rao, Ian wasn't in his right mind, please forgive him. My dad was furious and asked with his neck stuck out, forgive him? How else do you want us to forgive him? I didn't directly beat him to death, and my daughter didn't stab him to death. Isn't that forgiving him? When Bian's parents left in disgrace, I was also very annoyed. I should have stabbed him deeper at the beginning so that he wouldn't be able to come and pester me so soon. Looking at Wen Bian's miserable appearance, the Wen family's parents hated Yu Xinshin even more. Under the pressure from the Wen family's parents, the case was soon put on trial. Yu Xinshin was sentenced to 4 months in prison for buying and selling controlled drugs, drugging someone, although no serious consequences had occurred. In addition, since Wen Bian had issued a letter of forgiveness, she received this relatively light sentence. Although Wen Bian was the one who had committed violence, he was also the victim in this case, and his behavior and consciousness weren't his true intentions. He only needed to provide me with economic compensation. After thinking about it, I convinced my dad to accept the judgment result. Anyway, it wasn't possible for them to pay a heavier price for this matter. It was better to let them out earlier so that I could get my revenge on them sooner. After all, I really wanted to get rid of the two of them, and I really didn't want to wait too long. I had to think carefully about what exactly I should do. 10. During these 4 months, in order to make Wen Bian forget about Yu Xinshin. Wen Bian's parents introduced many girls to him. There were sexy girls, cute girls, fit girls, and intellectual girls. They came in all shapes and sizes. They hoped that one of them would catch Wen Bian's eye and pull their son back from the brink. Unfortunately, their wish wasn't fulfilled. I had already spread the news that Wen Bian had been drugged by his girlfriend and had almost made a big mistake, yet he still doted on his girlfriend. Their past love stories were well known in the circle. As soon as people heard Wen Bian's name, they ran away quickly. Even if they had to meet Wen Bian out of courtesy, they would just do it perfunctorily to deal with their parents. However, it was inevitable that some girls would secretly bring up the relevant matter and ask him why he liked someone who had drugged him, at first, with the hope that others could understand him. Wen Bian would tell them about his past love stories with Yu Xinshin. When I first met her, I casually said that I was hungry. Instead of taking me to an upscale restaurant to spend money, she took me back to her home and cooked me a bowl of instant noodles herself. You know, she was the first girl who was willing to cook for me. Even my mom has never cooked noodles for me herself. That bowl of noodles made me feel the taste of home. He talked on and on. But the girls were all left speechless. The way they looked at Wen Bian became strange. Indeed, with such deep feelings, if people didn't know better, they would think that Yu Xinshin had saved Wen Bian's life. It was all because of a bowl of noodles. It was really hard to understand. It could only be said that like attracts like. Wen Bian would also tell them, Xinshin is in jail because I'm useless. I couldn't protect her. It's also because Jian Rao is being unrelenting and insisting on causing trouble. Clearly, she's fine, but she won't let us go. If it weren't for her calling the police, there wouldn't be so many problems. The girls' views on right and wrong were completely shattered. Gradually, the news that Wen Bian might be mentally ill spread, and everyone looked at him with curiosity. Compared with others, Wen Bian thought that other women were all mediocre and only Yu Xinxin could understand him. Only Yu Xinxin was his destined other half. He wholeheartedly waited for Yu Xinxin to be released from prison so that they could rekindle their relationship. Wen Bian's parents were so worried about this that their hair turned white. The short 4 months passed quickly, and Yu Xinxin was about to be released from prison. Wen Bian wanted to pick Yu Xinxin up from prison in person, but his parents stopped him and locked him at home. This was exactly the opportunity one needed. 11. Yu Xinxin, who was sitting opposite me, was full of hostility. Jian Rao, did you come here to laugh at me? I shook my head and put on a sincere expression. Of course not. You know that I've liked Wen Bian since I was a child. Only when he's happy can I be happy. Yu Xinxin asked me suspiciously what I meant. I said seriously, Wen Bian will only be happy when he's with you. So, I'm here to help you. I'll help you be with Wen Bian. She was half believing and half doubting but didn't interrupt me. I continued on my own. Actually, Wen Bian's parents oppose your relationship not because they don't like you as a person, but because there's too big a gap between you and Wen Bian. You can't become better overnight, but if Wen Bian is willing to sacrifice himself a bit and become less outstanding, especially if his flaws are known to everyone, then his parents won't be able to pick on you anymore, right? I stopped speaking there, and Yu Xinxin's eyes immediately lit up. Wen Bian's parents could stop him for a while, but they couldn't stop him forever. Soon, Wen Bian and Yu Xinxin still found an opportunity to meet. Yu Xinxin used the same old trick and took Wen Bian to a party, the very party where I was insulted in my previous life. She arranged for reporters to sneak into the party in advance and took many astonishing photos. A few days later, the news was reported. The explosive content quickly spread on the internet. In the mosaicked photos, Wen Bian's face was clearly visible. The news of the son of the boss of Wen's group participated in an orgy party quickly fermented, bringing a fatal blow to Wen's group, which specialized in wedding business. Wen Bian became infamous overnight and, under the reinforce of tabloids, became a well-known lecher. Wen Bian's parents were in a hurry and reported the case overnight, saying that their son had been tricked into such a place. The spearhead was directly pointed at Yu Xinxin. The police quickly raided this stronghold and found a large number of contraband items used for entertainment. Among them was the same drug that Yu Xinxin had given Wen Bian last time. According to the confessions of those people, Yu Xinxin had not only bought the drug that one time. Some drugs could make girls fall into a coma and have no memory afterwards, and some could make men lose control of their animal instincts. She not only sold drugs but also once helped others bring many drugged girls here and earned a certain amount of money from it. Yu Xinxin was arrested again in accordance with the law and was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison 2 months later. Despite the facts in front of him, Wen Bian still refused to believe. He always firmly believed that all of this was framed on Yu Xinxin by his parents and me. In his eyes, Yu Xinxin was a perfect and pure girl. He vowed to fight against us villains to the end. He said that he must wait for Yu Xinxin to be released from prison and that he still wanted to be with her. He said that their love was unbreakable. Wen Bian's parents even suspected that he had mental problems and tied him up to be treated in a mental hospital, but he secretly ran away, and no one knew where he had gone. In order to save the business of the family enterprise, Wen Bian's father announced the deprivation of Wen Bian's shares in the enterprise, and the enterprise was taken over and managed by his eldest daughter, Wen Bian's half-sister Wen Bieji. After taking over, Wen Bieji quickly took a series of measures to restore the corporate image, including but not limited to completely separating the family enterprise from the other 3 members of the Wen family now. Wen Bian's father originally disagreed, but after a series of irresponsible actions by Wen Bian, he also acquiesced. His mother was immersed in the pain of not knowing where her son was every day and couldn't care about anything else at all. Wen Bieji took the opportunity to quickly complete the transfer of equity and family property. From then on, Wen Bian was completely kicked out of the family enterprise. 12. Wen Bian, who had secretly run away, found a job to support himself. He worked while waiting for Yu Xinxin to be released from prison. He wanted his family to see that his choice was not wrong. He also wanted Yu Xinxin to see that for her sake, he was willing to break with his family and endure any hardship. To my surprise, Wen Bian actually endured for more than 3 years. At first, when he went to visit Yu Xinxin in prison, she was so touched that she cried with tears in her eyes. But after she was finally released from prison, when she saw Wen Bian's living conditions, she frowned without any concealment. You, a young master, live in such a place? Wen Bian thought Yu Xinxin felt sorry for him and said attentively, Xinxin, it's worth enduring any hardship for you. But Yu Xinxin raised her voice, I mean, you, a young master, let me live with you in such a place and live such a life. How can you have the nerve? Obviously a rich young master. But you have to endure hardship for no reason. Are you out of your mind? Yu Xinxin forced Wen Bian to go back to the Wen family to ask for money, but was turned away. I don't know how Wen Biaji persuaded them. Her father had already taken Wen Bian's mother to live overseas last year, Yu Xinxin said righteously. Wen Bian is also of Wen family blood, he should have a share of the family property, right? Unfortunately, the Wen family's property had already been transferred to Wen Biaji's name. She and Wen Bian didn't have the same mother and had not grown up together since childhood, so naturally they had no feelings. Moreover, she hated those who were muddle-headed, and love struck the most. Wen Bian had caused such a commotion that almost destroyed Wen's group and the foundation of her good life. How could she give Wen Bian a good look? So, Wen Bian and Yu Xinxin were kicked out. Yu Xinxin was not discouraged and persistently urged Wen Bian to come back to ask for money every now and then. Gradually, she became disappointed and no longer had a good attitude towards Wen Bian. Waste, good for nothing. You can't even grab a share of the family property, 6,000 yuan a month. What can you do with that? You're really useless. These curses showed that Wen Bian's persistence over the past 3 years was like a huge joke. He came to the Wen family again. When Biaji was holding a wedding, she married a financial talent of equal status. The wedding was grand and romantic. He saw his parents but didn't dare to go up and say hello. He turned around and fled in embarrassment. After walking a long way, he looked back again. He returned to his small rental house, but there were blushing sounds coming from inside. He wasn't as angry as he imagined, but sat outside the door quietly waiting. After waiting for a long time, a man came out with his pants in his hands. Seeing Wen Bian at the door, the man was not embarrassed at all. Instead, he took out 1,000 yuan in cash from his briefcase and threw it in front of Wen Bian. The man said, "Brother, I cuckolded you, but not for nothing. Take this money, consider it as me buying your wife once, but when I met her, you were just a kid who hadn't even grown up yet." Wen Bian looked at the cash in front of him and listened to the man's words. He didn't know what it felt like in his heart. He walked into the room. It was in a mess and smelled of the entanglement of men and women, which was disgusting. His eyes fell on the spots on the bedsheet, and he suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. When Bian said softly, "Xinxin, what have my efforts and waiting over the years been for?" Hearing the movement, Yu Xinxin didn't look back and just sorted out her clothes on her own. "Wen Bian, are you crazy? You waited for me. And you had to cut off relations with your family to wait for me. Did you really think you could make a name for yourself? Couldn't you just be a young master and wait for me to come out? Self-pitying and crazy. If it weren't for the fact that you had some money before, how could I have taken a fancy to you?" As she spoke, she walked outside. "Since you found out, I won't pretend anymore. I see that the Wen family won't recognize you anymore. And I don't want to live such a poor life with you. Brother Wan has invited me. I'm going first. I probably won't come back either. Live this kind of life by yourself slowly." 13. When Bian finally understood at this moment that no matter which side he was on, he lived like a joke. His self-esteem had made him persist for 3 years, but it was trampled to pieces by Yu Xinxin. His anger surged, and he only felt infinite despair. He didn't have the face to go back to the Wen family anymore. He thought that life was quite meaningless, so he reached out and grabbed Yu Xinxin, who was walking outside, and dragged her back into the house. Then, he picked up a kitchen knife. His appearance of trying to restrain himself yet helplessly begging strongly tugged at my heartstrings. The guests were full, and it was grand, romantic, and very decent. He thought that his life should have been like this originally, right? He thought of me, later. He laughed self-deprecatingly. How could he still have a life? When Bian raised the kitchen knife again and aimed it at his carotid artery, later, based on the tip off from the masses, the police found 2 corpses in a residential house. The man killed the woman with random knife strikes and then committed suicide. According to the descriptions of the surrounding neighbors, the woman had multiple extramarital affairs. The police suspected it was a crime of passion. The police contacted Wen Biaji. Wen Biaji dealt with the aftermath perfunctorily and didn't let her father and her step-mother know. Anyway, he had been missing for so many years. Why add to their troubles? I looked at the person outside the car window who called himself Brother Wang and handed him a stack of money. Compliments and words of thanks came out of his mouth. "Boss, if there's such a thing in the future, you can still come to me." Leaving aside other things, I Brother Wang. Am definitely good at seducing these women. I said nothing and started the car to leave. I knew that when Bian would feel like a huge joke because of Yu Xinxin's betrayal. I knew that he wouldn't go back to his parents for help and would only have the intention of death. In my previous life, I liked him for so long. I knew him better than he knew himself. It's just that he never knew. The deep love I had for him that he trampled on finally became the axe that fell from above his head and the sharp sword that pierced through his chest, ending his life and getting justice for me. Story 2. I went back to the day he confessed his feelings to me. The boy was wearing a white shirt, his eyes soft as he said, "I like you." A second later, I heard his true thoughts. Believe that. Disgusting. The cicadas were loud on the camphor trees. And the people around us were cheering, though it was more like they were watching a joke unfold. Someone nearby whistled and laughed. Zhou Xiao's tastes seem a bit mild lately. The boy in the white shirt ignored them, standing in front of me with tender eyes. The sunlight filtered through his shoulders, making him look like a prince from a fairy tale. Zhou Jiashu leaned against the handle of my bicycle, bending down to look at me. His warm breath touching my face, he said, "Song Ji Wei. I like you." I saw my reflection in his eyes, a frail girl hidden under an oversized school uniform, slightly anemic. That was me at 17. I was still stunned, my face undoubtedly flushed and my fingertips trembling. After all, this was Zhou Jiashu, the boy I had secretly adored for so long. Before I could blurt out "I like you too," I heard the pure-hearted boy's inner voice. Believe that. Disgusting. I paused for a moment, then looked up at Zhou Jiashu in front of me. He was smiling tenderly, showing no sign of the disgust hidden deep inside. He confidently waited for my response. Since everyone at Nanjing knew I was head over heels for him, I pursed my lips, took a step back, and said with a trembling voice, "Sorry, I don't like you." Zhou Jiashu's face turned ugly just as a prominent white-haired boy casually passed by, looking as if he hadn't noticed the drama unfolding. I knew him. He was the school bully and Zhou Jiashu's arch-rival. Pointing at the white-haired bully, I told Zhou Jiashu, "I prefer that type. You understand." I grabbed the handle of my bicycle and shook it. "So, Zhou Jiashu, step aside." Zhou Jiashu was probably baffled, not understanding how the girl who only had eyes for him a second ago was now telling him to get lost. He stiffly placed his hand on my bike's handle, a strong sense of unease in his expression, and pressed his lips together as he asked, "What's wrong?" Boys naturally have more strength than girls, and with him holding it, I couldn't move my bicycle at all. Sweat ran anxiously down my forehead, but then suddenly, someone took the handle from me with one hand, easily breaking free from Zhou Jiashu's grip. "Didn't you hear? She told you to get lost." The voice was cold and slightly hoarse. I looked up to see the school bully's profile, his superior features and short silver-white hair glistening in the light, looking incredibly cool. The next second, I heard the school bully's panicked inner voice, "Damn, she's looking at me." The school bully rescued me from Zhou Jiashu's confession, pushing my pink bicycle forward, as some younger students teased him. "Qingqi, when did you stop riding motorcycles?" He kicked one of them and cursed, "Get lost." I walked beside him, feeling nervous, and mustered the courage to speak. "School bully, Qingqi." I paused for a moment before realizing he was telling me his name. He looked down slightly and asked softly, "Do you like me?" I instinctively wanted to shake my head but then heard his sinister inner thought, "Those who use me as a shield end up encased in concrete." My head quickly turned, and I nodded emphatically several times. Qingqi has eyes that resemble peach blossoms, which now curve into a smile as he stops walking, frees his hand to touch my face, and gently taps the mole below my eye with his thumb. He speaks leisurely, "From now on, you'll do my homework. Come watch my basketball games. And walk me to school. Treat me like you did Zhou Jiashu, but 10 times better." "Got it." I was a bit confused and asked, "What do you mean by that?" He condescendingly patted my face. "It means I'm letting you chase after me." Qingqi, with his dyed silver hair and earrings, looks like someone who's hard to please written all over his face. Suddenly, I feel like maybe I'm better off going back and continuing the battle with Zhou Jiashu. I followed the familiar path back home. This area is filled with villas. I wasn't brought back from the countryside until I was 17. At that age, I didn't understand many things, like why my mother was the first wife. Yet I had a half-sister, Song Ji, who was a few months older than me. Everyone liked Song Ji, including Zhou Jiashu. Zhou Jiashu and Song Ji were childhood sweethearts. Even his initial kindness towards me was to persuade me to donate a kidney to her, if it weren't for Song Ji's illness. The Song family would never have thought to bring me back. To them, I wasn't a person, but a remedy. but now, their intentions hadn't yet been revealed. Songji, who was recuperating at home, was watering the garden. Hearing me enter, she looked up and smiled gently. "You're back late. We've already had dinner." It didn't matter to me. I didn't have the privilege to dine at the table anyway. Zhou Jiaxu confessed his feelings to me today. Her watering can suddenly dropped to the ground. Splashing water on her face, she forced a smile. "Really, I wish you well." Surprised, I raised an eyebrow. Of course, I didn't accept. How could he be worthy of me? In that moment, I was overwhelmed by numerous spiteful and hateful thoughts, all coming from the usually kind Songji, a mere kidney donor, not grateful to us. "How dare you speak like that?" Jiaxu only told me he would get close to Songji Wei. He didn't say he'd confess his feelings for her. She must have seduced him. "Songji Wei, have you looked in the mirror? So ugly and flat." I smiled wryly, thinking they still expect to rely on me to survive. Wishful thinking. I ran upstairs, hearing Songji vigorously coughing behind me. As I climbed the stairs, a close family maid whispered to me, "The lady ordered not to save dinner for you." I nodded. It was usual. As I turned around, I paused, hearing the maid's heartfelt pity, so pitiful, before I returned. It was when Songji successfully recovered and was discharged from the hospital thanks to my kidney. Zhou Jiaxu promised me that it would be his engagement. Unexpectedly, he did get engaged, but not to me, to Songji. Enduring nausea and disgust, he had been deceiving me, this country girl he despised, and finally got his wish. On the day of his engagement, he held Songji by the waist in front of many guests, and as gently as when he confessed, he said to me, "Songji Wei, why don't you take a look in the mirror?" I looked down and saw my swollen figure, swollen from medication, reflected on the spotlessly clean floor, starkly different from the slender and radiant Songji. Maybe, it was always meant to be worlds apart. In that moment, my heart felt shattered. Fortunately, I woke up from the dream, back to the moment when Zhou Jiaxu first confessed his feelings to me, and I even unlocked a skill that allowed me to hear people's true thoughts. I took out my phone from under the pillow, and as soon as I opened the messaging app, I was greeted with over 99 unread messages. There was only one pinned at the top, from Zhou Jiaxu. At 17, I really liked him a lot. Zhou Jiaxu's messages kept popping up. Clearly, he was quite upset. "Zhou Jiaxu, Songji Wei, I'm giving you one more chance. My confession still stands." "Zhou Jiaxu, are you deliberately trying to anger me?" "Well, you've succeeded." "Zhou Jiaxu, stay away from Qingqi. He's no good." There were several missed calls, and scrolling up, I saw all the messages I had sent him, usually met with silence on his end. On rare occasions, a reply from Zhou Jiaxu would make my day. Now, Zhou Jiaxu was still sending a continuous stream of messages. I quickly blocked him with a single click, then leisurely, I entered the grade group chat, and sure enough, they were discussing the incident from the afternoon, the school heartthrob and the tough guy fighting over a girl. A boring headline. They even posted photos from the scene. I clicked on one and instantly blushed. In the photo, a young man with silver white hair was nearly embracing the girl, reaching over the bicycle handle she was holding, and provocatively staring down Zhou Jiaxu with a raised eyebrow. The comments continued to flood in. Who is this girl anyway? Even the star beauty from the neighboring school hasn't caught Qing brother's attention. He usually doesn't allow pictures of him, but today there's so many and he hasn't said a thing. It must be serious. I exited the chat just as I received a new friend notification. The username was CC, with the note Songji Wei's admirer. My heart skipped a beat as I clicked accept. "Ji Wei, I've accepted your friend request. Now we can start chatting." After a brief pause, he sent a voice message. His voice was husky as he said, "Just friends." I intended to pause the voice message, but in my fluster, I accidentally initiated a video call. He answered, and a handsome face appeared extremely close to the camera, almost as if his eyelashes could brush against my face. I instinctively held my phone a bit farther away. Then I heard him chuckle from the screen. Qingqi teasingly said, "Why is your face so red while talking to me?" I struggled to find words. Then, from his side of the screen, someone shouted, wanting to lean in, "Brother Qing, we want to see our sister-in-law. It's all over the forums." Qingqi didn't even look back, just chuckled and said, "Get lost." He then reached out, covering the camera like a child hoarding his toys. Pretty childish, really. After a while, Qingqi moved his hand away, his lips curving into a smile. "Couldn't stand being apart for a bit and had to video call me. Huh, miss me?" His tone was light, almost seductive. I was about to explain when suddenly, my stomach growled loudly. I was hungry. Before he could react, I quickly pressed the red hang-up button and buried my head in my hands. So embarrassing. End of translation. I couldn't step out, and there was no dinner left for me at home. I searched the entire room but found no snacks or bread. I had no choice but to resign myself to lying in bed and waiting it out. Outside the window stood a tall camphor tree. If it weren't for this tree blocking the view and sunlight, I wouldn't have been given this south-facing room. The leaves rustled, and I heard the sound of knuckles tapping on the glass. Looking up, I saw a silver-haired young man climbing the branches of the camphor tree, acting recklessly. He tapped on the window with one hand while holding a bulging bag in the other. I hurried to my feet and, in disbelief, opened the window as the night wind rushed in like wildfire. I had heard that Ching-Chi had gone into Special Forces training right after graduation. His physical condition was indeed top-notch. Ching-Chi handed me the bag, his elegant fingers well-defined as he curved his lips into a smirk. "Dear Miss Ji-Wei, it's Ching Brothers Delivery Service," he whispered. "Would you consider giving a 5-star rating? After all, who is chasing whom? Ching-Chi?" The next day, Ching-Chi gave me the answer. It was indeed me chasing him. I had to wait for him to finish school and run errands during breaks, even showing up to support him at his basketball games. I brought Ching-Chi 2 bottles of sports drink as a thank you for last night's delivery. I walked slowly to the gymnasium, only to find it crowded, especially with girls shouting the names Ching-Chi and Zhou Jiaxu. There was a basketball game between Class 1 and 3. And they were in those respective classes. As I walked towards Ching-Chi, someone blocked my path. It was Zhou Jiaxu standing right in front of me, his comment from yesterday still stinging in my heart. His expression softened slightly as he reached for the drink in my hand. It had always been like this. I brought him water when he played basketball and took notes while he studied. Occasionally he would sweeten the deal. Zhou Jiaxu said, "Since you brought me water, I'll forgive you for yesterday." I dodged his hand and looked down. "Excuse me." He stood frozen. I quickly walked a few steps to Ching-Chi behind him and handed him the drinks. Ching-Chi squinted his eyes, seemingly in a good mood, and lazily said, "Oh, I can't open the bottle." Resigned, I took the bottle back, unscrewed the cap, and handed it to him. Ching-Chi took a sip, his Adam's apple bobbing, and chuckled towards the direction behind me. Suddenly, I heard his inner thoughts. Ching-Chi was thinking, "Ugh, I detest presumptuous people." I turned around, and Zhou Jiaxu was still standing there, looking a bit flustered, his lips pursed, and as I looked over, he averted his dark eyes. He was angry, and I was pleased. Ching-Chi was in top form, unstoppable on the basketball court, inciting waves of screams in the gym. In contrast, Zhou Jiaxu was unusually distracted and kept glancing over in our direction, almost getting trounced. It was no surprise that Ching-Chi's class won. After the game, Ching-Chi walked over to me, his face full of triumphant spirit. I handed him the water, and he leaned down, hooking his finger for me to come closer. I felt my face and neck enveloped by his warm breath. Ching-Chi drawled, "After watching my game, got nothing to say." I blinked, and the girls next to me had been exclaiming for half an hour about how handsome Brother Chi was. I looked up at him hesitantly and echoed, "Brother Chi is handsome." The next second, my head was shrouded in darkness under a jacket. It was the school uniform jacket Brother Chi had set aside before entering the scene, still carrying a scent of soap. I heard someone shouting, "Brother Chi, why are your ears and face so red? Did those guys from Class 1 play dirty and hurt you?" Brother Chi clenched his teeth and hissed, "Shut up." 8. Life became much easier without revolving around Zhou Jiaxu. My impression of Ching-Chi still lingered on that time when I came out of the convenience store and stumbled upon him fighting with some guys from the neighboring school. Terrified, I crouched down on the ground, fearing I might accidentally get hurt, and only dared to look up when everything went quiet. Only Ching-Chi was left standing, leaning against the wall with a smirk as he looked at me. I was scared. Ching-Chi asked, "Got a band-aid?" I did have one, hesitating. I still approached and handed one to him. Instead, he extended his hand, his pale back of the hand slightly scraped, signaling me to apply it for him. Ching-Chi lowered his gaze and asked, "From first middle school?" I nodded. "Which class? What's your name?" Fearful of the school bully seeking revenge later, I gave a vague response. Just always been a fan of Zhou Jiaxu. That wasn't entirely untrue. At first middle school, maybe not many knew Song Ji-Wei. But Zhou Jiaxu's sycophant was likely well remembered. Just as I was tearing open the band-aid wrapper, Ching-Chi suddenly withdrew his hand, his expression turning cold. Boring. I didn't know which word had set him off. As he walked away, his back looked somewhat frail and unsteady, yet, now that I was getting to know Ching-Chi, I found him unexpectedly obedient. Even when he got angry, he was quite easy to appease. On the other hand, Zhou Jiaxu always seemed unpredictable. When he was nice to me, it felt like he genuinely liked me. but when he was not, he was truly spiteful. Fortunately, I probably wouldn't have much to do with him anymore. Then, after school, Zhou Jiashu showed up at the Song residence. I went downstairs to grab some study guides and saw Song Ji happily running out of the piano room, half complaining and half cooing. Jiashu, it's been so long since you last visited me. Zhou Jiashu paused for a moment and asked, how's your recovery? Song Ji chattered nonstop. My health has just been a burden on my parents, but I'm fine, you don't need to worry. I'll ask Auntie to cut some fruit for you. You love. Zhou Jiashu cut her off. His lips pursed. No need. He looked up at the stairs and caught my eye as I stood there. He said, I'm here to see Song Ji Wei. Song Ji froze, as if she hadn't heard him right, and repeated, Brother Jiashu, who are you looking for? Ignoring her, Zhou Jiashu slowly said, Song Ji Wei, come down and talk. Under his gaze, I slowly descended the stairs and then, right in front of him, picked up my Idiot's Guide to High School Math, sighed, and said, it's not that I don't want to talk to you, but I'm discussing math problems with Qingqi over video. He'll be upset if he has to wait too long. Song Ji's face turned pale. Zhou Jiashu's face darkened. That night, Song Ji made a fuss all night long, insisting on returning to school. She was much loved and recently in good health, so the family agreed. After her school re-entry process was completed, Song Ji's mother, for the first time, condescendingly spoke so much to me. It was half instruction and half threat, essentially summarizing that I should act as Song Ji's study companion and servant at school. Song Ji's mother said, Song Ji Wei, don't forget, being able to study here is all thanks to the resources I provided for you. She has always looked down on me, the country girl, and never took me seriously. My father made his fortune thanks to Song Ji's mother, a second-generation wealthy businesswoman, so naturally, her status is higher. I meekly agreed. It wasn't until the end of the conversation that my father finally spoke up, calling my name, Song Ji Wei. I turned around. He said, don't call Gigi sister at school, it's hard to explain. Same father, but the two sisters are only a few months apart. Who could explain that? As soon as Song Ji returned to school, she caused a stir. She had taken a medical leave for half a semester, and during her time at school, thanks to her knack for management, she was considered a prominent figure. She and Zhou Jiashu were in the same class and recently seemed inseparable. Soon, the rumors about me and Zhou Jiashu self-destructed, with her parents backing her. Song Ji would boss me around as she pleased, being under someone's roof. I indeed had no choice but to bow my head. In the sweltering 40-degree midsummer noon, I ran errands for her and her friends, buying ice pops, returning drenched in sweat. I found them laughing together. That Song Ji Wei, you can tell she's a poor country bumpkin the moment you see her. She clung to Zhou Jiashu and then moved on to Qingqi. Song Ji Wei's grades are terrible. She's nowhere near as good as Gigi. Zhou Jiashu and Gigi are childhood sweethearts. Gigi, what's your relationship with Song Ji Wei anyway? I've never seen such an obedient dog. They burst into laughter as if they had heard the joke of the century. Suddenly, someone said, hey, Gigi, Song Ji Wei has the same last name as you. Song Ji's smile froze for a moment, then quickly returned to normal. Song Ji Wei is the daughter of our family's housekeeper. My dad pulled some strings to get her into our school. I interrupted their praises of Song Ji's kind family. Placing the foam box of ice pops on the table, Song Ji reached out and fiddled with the contents. I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, I heard, Ji Wei, they're all melted. Could you run out again? I lowered my eyes, pondering how to retort. Suddenly, a cool voice spoke up, not as gentle as usual. Zhou Jiashu said indifferently, Song Ji, that's too much. Silence fell around us. Song Ji looked up, a bit wronged. Jiashu, you know she is. She swallowed her next words, seemingly unable to speak them out loud while looking at Zhou Jiashu. I heard Song Ji's inner turmoil, half anger and half grievance. She thought, why has his attitude changed when we share similar experiences? I glanced at Zhou Jiashu, puzzled by his sudden defense of me. Perhaps they had changed their tactics, one playing good cop, the other bad cop. I slowly said, what's too much about it? Haven't you done the same? When I first pursued Zhou Jiashu, he was quite annoying. He sent me out to buy coffee in a storm, and when I returned soaked, the coffee not even spilled, he merely glanced and said, Song Ji Wei, the coffee's cold. Zhou Jiashu clearly remembered this too. The air grew colder, and no one dared to speak. In the ensuing silence, someone lazily hooked their arm around my neck from behind, pulling me gently backward into their embrace, crashing into a refreshing coolness of summer. I looked up to see Qingqi's eyes, amused yet mocking. I was wondering where you've been these past days, running errands for others. Qingqi scanned the crowd, his gaze passing over those present. His name had been a buzz on the campus forums, notorious as the school tyrant. Let her run the errands, Chun-Chi articulated clearly, pausing after each word. Are you even worthy? Chun-Chi watched with a smirk as the group obediently went off to run laps, not daring to utter a word in protest. Even Song-ji wasn't exempt. A group of them drank melted ice pops and ran laps around the field under the scorching sun, drawing the gaze of classmates from the balconies. The head of discipline hurried toward the field, his half-bald head gleaming in the sunlight. The instigator, Chun-Chi, stood beside me, his silver hair boldly prominent, squinting down at the people below, his hostility unabated. Chun-Chi, I called out his name. He turned, and the fierceness in his eyes melted away instantly. Don't do this next time, I said softly, my voice barely a whisper. It's not a good look. It wasn't that I felt pity for Song-ji and the others, rather, it was that Chun-Chi doing all this for me felt unwarranted. Since my mother passed away, I had been mostly self-sufficient. No one had ever treated me this well, although I'd heard Chun-Chi had been involved in even shadier dealings before. Such blatant disregard for rules definitely cast him in a negative light. Chun-Chi rested his chin on his hand, leaning close enough for me to count his eyelashes. And I saw my reflection in his eyes. Feel better? He asked. I paused for a moment. Yes. Chun-Chi's lips curved into a smirk, his knuckle lightly tapping my forehead. Then, the impact is quite positive. With Chun-Chi stepping in, Song-ji no longer dared to boss me around, scared off by just the mention of his name, so much so that she didn't even complain to her family. Perhaps my words had struck a chord with Zhou Jiaxu, as he too stopped bothering me. Occasionally, I saw Zhou Jiaxu and Song-ji together at school. Song-ji would look at Zhou tenderly 1 second and then switch to glaring at me with disgust the next, a real talent for dramatics. But Zhou didn't seem as close to her as I had imagined. However, none of that mattered to me anymore. My only task was to study hard. Lately, there might be another task, tutoring the underachieving student, Chun-Chi. On the day the monthly test scores were posted, the bulletin board was surrounded by a crowd. My grades weren't great before, but during the days I lay in the hospital before coming back, I had studied high school textbooks, hoping to retake the college entrance exam one day, so I was also looking forward to seeing my ranking. Song-ji and her group were at the forefront of the board. Ji, you're ranked 29th in the grade. That's impressive. Of course, she was impressive. Her family hired top tutors for her daily. The top of the grade, as expected, is Zhou Jiaxu. They turned around to see me starting from the bottom of the grade, inevitably sneering a bit. I heard Song-ji whisper, some people know their place, aware of where they stand. Suddenly, someone tugged at her sleeve, voice trembling. Ji, her ranking, it seems to be ahead of yours, just a few spots above her. Song-ji stared at the bulletin board, her face turning pale. Someone read out my position. Song-ji Wei, 20th, surprisingly high. Containing my joy, I finally spotted Chun-Chi's name. He had jumped to the middle ranks. The Jiwei tutoring class was evidently effective. I turned around, and Chun-Chi was walking with a group of boys from the end of the corridor, heading to play basketball. I waved, worried he wouldn't see me. I tiptoed and called out his name excitedly. Chun-Chi. He lifted his eyelids and looked towards me. 300th place. My eyes curved up, filled with joy and pride. You ranked 300th, Chun-Chi. Chun-Chi paused in his steps, while the people nearby teasingly nudged his elbow. Bro Ching, your girl is quite cute. Under everyone's gaze, the face of the school tyrant suddenly flushed red. I could sense Chun-Chi was somewhat irritated. He thought to himself, it's over. How can she be so good at this? People who liked Chun-Chi were many, but due to his reputation as the school tyrant, most harbored secret crushes. However, the one who approached me today was one of the few who openly showed their interest, the school beauty from the neighboring high school, Jiang Xian, who had acted in a few somewhat famous youth dramas. I heard Chun-Chi fought for her before, though I don't know why they never became a couple. She had been waiting for me at the school gate since early morning. Chun-Chi and I now go to school together. He had gone to the convenience store to buy breakfast for me, and I was waiting for him at the gate, only to be approached by Jiang Xian first. Jiang Xian was very beautiful. If Song-ji is the sole pure white jasmine, then Jiang Xian is the intense rose. Are you Song-ji Wei? I nodded. Jiang Xian got straight to the point. You can't win against me. Stay away from Ah-Chi. Ah-Chi appears cold but has a kind heart. Sometimes his sympathy can be overwhelming, giving others the wrong impression. Moreover, after what was said about you on the forum last night, I would be too ashamed to even come to school if I were you. Ah-Chi's interest in you is just a fleeting fascination. Persisting any further will only bring you embarrassment. Forum, what forum? She finished speaking but suddenly her eyes lit up and looked past me, affectionately calling out, "Ah chi." Before I could react, a cup of soy milk and a bun were thrust into my hands, and the silver-haired young man with a bag of pure milk bent down, slipping a packet of sugar into my pocket, and even zipped up my partially open backpack. Chung-chi didn't look at Jiang Xian and mumbled unclearly, "What were you saying?" I blurted out quickly, "She said you're a 3-minute man, Chung-chi." My words were ambiguous, and my face turned red. Chung-chi, who hadn't secured the milk bag properly, turned his head with a murderous look towards Jiang Xian. Chung-chi's actions were as smooth and practiced as if he had done them countless times before. Jiang Xian watched Chung-chi zip up my backpack, her face turning pale. "Ah chi, you never let others get too close. How can you do these things for her?" Chung-chi slightly lifted his eyelids and spat out 2 words, "Who are you?" Being a celebrity usually requires a strong mental constitution, but with just 2 words, Chung-chi broke Jiang Xian's composure. As Chung-chi and I walked into the school, he suddenly spoke, "I don't know her. I never fought for her. It's all just rumors." I was momentarily stunned, then realized that Chung-chi was explaining to me. I looked up at Chung-chi, his light-colored hair making his complexion appear even more pale. He lazily said, "I'm not like some people who liked someone else before they liked me." Fortunately, she realized her mistake in time. His tone was ambiguous, not clear whom he was referring to. He lightly raised his eyebrows, cueing me, "Right, Song Ji-wei." After the morning's drama, I had a lingering sense of unease. True enough, as soon as I entered the school, something felt off. It was especially apparent during the break. The looks I received in the hallway were peculiar, and I heard whispers from all around. Song Ji-wei is actually an illegitimate daughter. No wonder she's playing both sides. It must be in her nature from birth. If I were her, I wouldn't dare to face Song Ji, let alone go to school with him. Oh my, that's disgusting. I realized something, and while in the restroom stall, I turned on my phone and checked the forum. Sure enough, there was a trending post about Song Ji-wei, the secret child from Yizhong, playing both sides. The post was anonymous, claimed by a fellow student who couldn't stand Song Ji-wei, and it dramatically and falsely narrated my background, completely distorting the truth. It said that Song Ji's parents were the loving and rightful couple. My mother schemed to seduce Song's father for his wealth, and has been using me to blackmail the Song family ever since. Now she had sent me to Yizhong to latch onto wealthy heirs. The post described Song Ji as pitiful, even blaming my mother for his poor health. And how shamelessly I clung to Zhou Jiaxu and Chung-chi. I didn't need to read further. The comments were all full of scorn. I was so angry I felt dizzy. The truth was not like that at all. It was actually Song Ji's mother who had set her sights on my newlywed father, becoming the other woman. And eventually, they ran off together, leaving my father to never look back at us. Until her death, my mother still hoped he would come back to her. I left the restroom and washed my face at the sink. Zhou Jiaxu passed me a piece of paper. He whispered, "I've already had someone handle the situation on the forum. Don't worry." I looked at him through the mirror, his eyes gentle beneath his white shirt. "Did you already know about this?" I asked, referring to the content of the post. Zhou Jiaxu closed his eyes in distaste and nodded. "I'll take care of this. No one will talk about your background, and don't be mad at me anymore. After this blows over, let's pretend it never happened." He had assumed it to be true without even asking me. He reopened his eyes and looked at me tenderly. "You see, from the moment we first met, I've been helping you. Come back, Ji-wei." I dried my face, tossed the tissue in the trash, and turned to face Zhou Jiaxu, calmly stating, "Zhou Jiaxu, I am not an illegitimate daughter." From the first time we met, Zhou Jiaxu had always been helping me. When I first arrived here, I hadn't even located the Song family home yet and got lost in the villa area, chased around by a large dog from someone's house. My mother had died of rabies, and I had always been terrified of dogs. It was pouring rain that day, and as I ran, my meager belongings fell all over the place. The dog knocked me down, and I was so scared I started crying. But then I heard a whistle, and the dog immediately got off me and ran away happily. Trembling and wiping my tears in the rain, I gathered my pitiful possessions. Suddenly, an umbrella appeared over my head, held by a hand with distinct knuckles, belonging to a cold, young man in a white shirt. For a moment, I felt utterly ashamed. "Did you drive the dog away? Did you save me? What's your name?" he said. "My name is Zhou Jiaxu. Living under the Song family's roof, ignored at school. Only Zhou Jiaxu constantly helped me. I always stayed by his side. Maybe I couldn't even clearly define my feelings, whether it was actually liking him. After all, from the beginning, he had his own motives." Zhou Jiaxu was a complex person. Sometimes I thought he liked me, even wanting to write his name on my textbooks, but the next second, he could just stiffen his face and cross out the names he had just written down in the textbook. I always knew he despised something about me, but I never knew what it was. Now, I understand. He always thought I was an illegitimate child, that the blood flowing through my veins was tainted. Liking Zhou Jiaxu is worse than liking a dog. I made my way unobstructed to the entrance of Class 1, and sure enough, I saw a crowd surrounding Song Ji. She was crying sadly, and the people around her were busy comforting her. Seeing me at the classroom doorway, they all glared at me angrily. Fortunately, after the previous incident with Qingqi, no one dared to mock me openly, fearing they might offend the school tyrant. Song Ji had always been superficially gentle with me, since she needed something from me, but lately, something had triggered her. First, she insisted on going to school, then there was the ice pop incident, and our conflict had essentially become public. Her eyes, red and swollen, clenched her fists until they turned white. Song Ji Wei, can't you just leave our family alone? I heard her inner thoughts again. Zhou Jiaxu just went to see her. He used to despise illegitimate children just like I did. How could he change like this? Leaning against the wall, I chuckled. Of course not. Song Ji's expression froze. I walked forward, resting my hands on her desk, looking down at her. This post is misleading. I'm not the illegitimate child, the child of the mistress. Someone else is. Song Ji had been well shielded by her parents, unaware of their affairs, truly believing her mother was the rightful partner, which led to this misunderstanding and her secret hostility towards me. My sudden declaration caught her off guard, prompting an instinctive rebuttal. What proof do you have? I shook my head, stood up straight, a hint of disdain in my posture. No proof is needed. The accuser bears the burden of proof. The innocent do not need to prove their innocence, I said. I will call the police. Justice will give me the answer. Did the person who spread the rumor really think they could remain anonymous without responsibility? Her face turned pale. Before I even called the police, justice arrived first. Someone mentioned, the forum's anonymous feature suddenly went offline. People near me, hiding their phones behind books, were also viewing the post. The poster's name, Song Ji, was clearly visible. Everyone's gaze at Song Ji turned strange after comforting her for so long, only to find out she was the one who posted it. Truly, she was one way on the surface and another behind the back. Ultimately, Song Ji, being thin-skinned and overwhelmed, fainted. In the VIP hospital room, Song Ji had just come out from dialysis, looking pale. The caregiver was bustling around, and Song Ji's mother was feeding her sliced fruit. I was being scolded by Song Ji's father. Song Ji Wei, I am truly disappointed in you. Is this how you repay us? By upsetting my daughter to the point of hospitalization, he completely ignored what Song Ji had done. I dangled my eyes tiredly, staring at the clean floor, recalling the time I was alone in the hospital after donating a kidney to Song Ji. The family's attitude towards me changed drastically right after the surgery. When I first came here, it was to show my long-lost biological father that I, too, was a worthy daughter. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. Luckily, I no longer cared. I understand the situation. I heard you're thinking of calling the police. That's ridiculous. You shouldn't go back to school, as those are Song Ji's classmates, and it wouldn't be good for her. I'll arrange a transfer for you, mister, Song said, softening his voice as he realized his tone had been a bit too forceful. We're all family here. Let's try to understand each other. Okay, no, I replied softly. Mister, Song was stunned. This was the first time I had ever refused him. What did you say? He demanded sharply. My throat felt dry. The atmosphere in the hospital room grew tense. Suddenly, the door swung open without warning, and a group of people entered, surrounding a young man with silver hair. He spread his hands and said, Song Ji Wei, come here. I quickly walked towards him and asked in a low voice, how did you get here? Qingqi placed his hand on my back and chuckled. I'm here to support you, mister. Song clearly recognized Qingqi, his expression turning somewhat ingratiating. I had no doubt that he was about to ask me to connect him with Qingqi. I sighed, feeling unexpectedly emboldened, and repeated firmly, I said no, I will report to the police, and I am not donating my kidney. Whether Song Ji is alive or dead is none of my concern. Stop bothering me. I turned to look at Song Ji, who was gripped by panic, clutching the blanket tightly. Song Ji's dislike for me stemmed from our different mothers, from Zhou Jiaxu, and from her jealousy of my health. I shattered her long-held illusions. Song Ji, your mother was truly deceptive, and your father was definitely unfaithful during his marriage. Song Ji, you are the illegitimate daughter you rant about in your posts. After I had spoken my piece, I left the hospital room. Leaving chaos behind, sitting in the hospital corridor, someone suddenly crouched in front of me. Ching-Chi and his companions had lingered at the door of the hospital room a bit longer, undoubtedly handling the aftermath for me. If it weren't for him, today wouldn't have been so easy for me. I pinched the palm of my hand, looking into Ching-Chi's eyes. Thank you. The sunlight filtered through his features, exceptionally clear. I hesitated, then asked, why are you so good to me? Ching-Chi propped his chin and smiled slightly. Are you speaking or cooing? My face flushed instantly. It wasn't coquetry, nor was it flattery. I was genuinely asking you, Ching-Chi. Ching-Chi furrowed his brows as if he was really contemplating. He said, does there need to be a reason? Some people just shine brightly, and when you see them, you want to give them the best. The first time I saw you, you were being chased around by the Zhou family's dog. It was quite a scene. And I was the one who whistled the dog away. I wanted to come over to see you, but then I saw Zhou Jiaxu. Seeing him annoys me, so I left. If I had known it was you, I definitely wouldn't have turned away. Had I known it was Song Jiwei, I would never have let anyone get there first. With that turn, Zhou Jiaxu was all that filled Song Jiwei's eyes, and she couldn't see anyone else. Watching her run around for Zhou Jiaxu, seeing her suffer yet still like him, watching them happy together. All I could do was walk away in disappointment. My eyelashes fluttered, surprised that he had helped me even before Zhou Jiaxu had. I waited for him to continue, but he stopped, his peach blossom eyes making me feel warm, and then, I prompted, you're in such a hurry to probe my feelings. Song Jiwei, he said with a smirk. Ching-Chi stood up casually and commented indifferently, the Zhou family's dog has always been well behaved, never running around and always listening to its owner. Ching-Chi and I went to the police station together to file a case, and the forum post remained online. It was said that Song Ji had been trying to delete the post, but to no avail. Just like the day when the forum suddenly glitched and disabled the anonymity feature, the comments beneath had already turned against her. Ching-Chi and I looked through the content of the post together, and he was particularly displeased with the part about me playing two sides, scoffing. What kind of wreck is Zhou Jiaxu to be worth your stepping on? The case was resolved quickly, not only requiring Song Ji to make a public apology, but I also received a financial compensation. It was neither too much nor too little, just enough to free myself from the control of the Song family, covering my tuition and living expenses. Song Ji admitted that she was spreading rumors, which in a way was also an indirect admission that her own origins were questionable, and that she was the illegitimate daughter. After this incident, my illness worsened. When it rains it pours, and the Song family's business also began to decline suddenly, but it had nothing to do with me. I collected the compensation from the Song family, sipped on a yogurt drink, and typed on my phone, Jiwei. I knew it, justice would give me an answer. Ching-Chi, what about me? After some thought, I typed out a response, Jiwei, Brother Ching will lead me to justice. There was no reply for a long time. I put down my phone to do my homework, and when I remembered to check it again, a new message had been there for a while. Ching-Chi had sent a voice message, the voice of a young man, hoarse and slowly flowing through the earpiece. Song Jiwei, what should I do? I feel like you're about to catch up to me. Under the camphor tree, a young man in a white shirt stood for a long time. The fragmented light fell softly on Zhou Jiaxu as I walked under the tree. He called out my name. I turned around, puzzled. Zhou Jiaxu's expression was complex. It was hard to tell if he felt relieved or something else. I'm sorry, he pursed his lips. I never thought Zhou Jiaxu would say these words. He didn't seem as unapproachable as Ching-Chi, but he was prouder than anyone and would never easily lower his head. Patiently, I asked, is this about the misunderstanding that I'm an illegitimate child? Zhou Jiaxu looked at me intently for a few seconds before responding in a low and strained voice. For everything that happened before, Song Ji has been telling me for years that she had a half-sister from the same father, and I just took her word for it. Seeing my expressionless face, Zhou Jiaxu's eyes drooped, revealing a fragile, glass-like vulnerability. Have you ever met my brother? I had met him before. A cute little chubby boy who liked to run after Zhou Jiaxu. But Zhou Jiaxu's attitude towards him was indifferent, even harsh. Zhou Jiaxu paused, then exposed his own wounds. He is the child of a woman my father kept on the side. I belatedly realized that Zhou Jiaxu's conflicting attitude towards me was merely projecting his own pain onto me. He even helped deceive me along with the Song family because, in his eyes, I owed them. Zhou Jiaxu. I suddenly called his name, my eyes curving into a smile. He looked up, holding his breath. As it had been a long time since he had seen me smile at him, I heard the bitterness in Zhou Jiaxu's heart. But I really do like Song Jiwei a lot. I like you. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw Zhou Jiashu's eyes light up, and I scoffed, believe that, disgusting, Zhou Jiashu must understand, some things can't be fixed with an apology. I returned those words to him. Zhou Jiashu was unsteady on his feet, watching me quietly and painfully. Perhaps at that moment, he realized what he had truly lost. Song Jiwei, a lazy voice sounded from behind me, tinged with dissatisfaction. I quickly turned around to see Qingqi standing not far behind us, holding a strawberry-flavored ice cream. His peach blossom eyes squinted, giving me the feeling of being caught in an affair by the rightful partner. I didn't bother with Zhou Jiashu anymore and ran towards Qingqi. However, I slipped halfway and crashed right into Qingqi's arms. Qingqi steadied me but hissed in pain. I hurriedly apologized. I'm so sorry. Where does it hurt? Qingqi took my hand and pressed it against the area over his left heart. Beneath my palm was his hot, rapidly beating heart. I looked up to see Qingqi's face showing no sign of pain. Instead, his eyes were lowered as he looked at me. His gaze tender and affectionate. It hurts here. I realized I had been played. As I turned to leave, Qingqi gently pulled me back and sighed. Dear Miss Jiwei, I understand that there are other guys around you, but as someone pursuing you, I feel a bit insecure. So, I decided to drop 2 words from pursuit object.